Chapter 1. Coffee, Chaos, and the Ice King. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. Ava Reed knew this because the last 3 days had gone something like this. Day 1. Lost her job when the diner she worked at shut down overnight due to unforeseen financial circumstances. Translation: the owner skipped town. Day 2. The landlord taped a pale yellow eviction notice to her door, apologized awkwardly, and told her she had 2 weeks. Day 3. Her shoes decided to die in the middle of the city's financial district during a thunderstorm. Now it was day 4, and the universe, apparently not done, handed her a paper cup filled with boiling coffee and an impending disaster. Order for Ava, the barista called. Ava squeezed her way through the crush of suits and high heels crowding the sleek marble counter. The cafe was tucked into the ground floor of Voss Tower, the kind of skyscraper that looked like it had been designed specifically to make poor people feel smaller. All steel and glass and arrogance. She shouldn't be here. This building screamed money in a way that made her secondhand blouse and charity store skirt feel like a costume. The only reason she'd set foot inside was because her job interview was on the 20th floor and she'd miscalculated how much time it took to walk across half the city in bad shoes. The coffee was supposed to be a small comfort. Instead, it was about to become a weapon. Thank you, Ava said, taking the cup and turning straight into a wall. Except it wasn't a wall. Walls didn't smell faintly of expensive cologne and danger. The impact jolted her, and the lid popped clean off. In a split second of horror, she watched the coffee lift out of the cup as if in slow motion, an arc of steaming brown, before splashing down the front of a very, very white shirt. Oh my God, her voice came out strangled. I'm so sorry. The world seemed to stop. Conversations died. A few people actually gasped. As the noise in the cafe dropped to a low hum, Ava's stomach dropped with it. The man in front of her glanced down at his ruined shirt, the stain spreading across crisp fabric that looked like it cost more than her rent. He didn't swear. He didn't jerk back. He simply stilled. Then his gaze lifted. His eyes were the first thing she registered. Gray. Not soft gray. Not storm cloud romantic gray, but cold, metallic, like steel left out in winter. They were sharp, assessing, and utterly impersonal as they settled on her face. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair, cut precise and neat, no strand dared out of place. His suit, or what she could now see of it beneath the coffee-colored ruin, was black, tailored to perfection, draping over him like armor. Ava forgot how to breathe. She clutched the empty cup, fingers shaking. I didn't see you. I'm really sorry. I'll pay for the shirt? His voice was cool and low, carrying over the cafe like a quiet threat. You'll pay for the shirt? The way he said it made the back of her neck prickle. Ava swallowed. I mean, I can try, she muttered, heat creeping across her cheeks. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone at the counter leaned closer to whisper, not nearly as quietly as they thought. That's Lucian Voss. Ava's heart stuttered. Lucian Voss, CEO of Voss International. The man whose name had been plastered across every business article in the city, ruthless, brilliant, untouchable, the kind of man who moved companies like pieces on a chessboard and never ever lost. And she had just baptized him in cheap coffee. Oh, perfect. Ava forced a breath into her lungs. I really am sorry. If you give me the dry cleaning bill. You work here? He cut in. His tone was clipped, each word precise. It didn't sound like a question so much as an accusation. No, Ava said, then winced at how small she sounded. She straightened her shoulders. I mean, not here in the building. I have an interview upstairs. In that, he said, his gaze traveling down her outfit and back up with surgical detachment. It wasn't lecherous. That might have been easier to shrug off. This was worse. It was pure assessment. Like she was a piece of equipment, he was deciding whether to discard. A few people nearby winced on her behalf. A flicker of something hot and indignant flared in her chest. Yes, she said tightly. In this. He arched the barest fraction of an eyebrow. You're late. Ava blinked. Excuse me? Your interview, he said impatiently. It begins in... He glanced at the slim watch on his wrist. 2 minutes. It takes at least 5 to get to the 20th floor. 7 in heels. 10 if you insist on carrying your life in that... His lip curled almost imperceptibly. Bag. She lifted a hand reflexively to the fraying strap of her oversized tote. I didn't ask for your time estimate, she shot back. Before she could stop herself, the air shifted. The barista froze mid-swipe, eyes wide. The woman behind Ava sucked in a shocked breath. Somewhere in the back, a spoon clattered against porcelain. Lucian Voss, the man whose companies swallowed other companies for breakfast, stared at her like she'd grown a second head. What did you say? He asked softly. You idiot, Ava, shut up. Just apologize again and back. Away before you end up arrested or thrown. Off the building, or can he do that? Probably. He looks like he knows people. But something in his tone, that lazy, dangerous, I'm not used to being challenged. Softness rubbed against the raw edges of her last 4 days. She was tired. Tired of being walked over. Tired of feeling like life just happened to her. And maybe this wasn't a smart hill to die on. But it was the one she was standing on. I said, Ava replied, meeting his gaze even though her stomach was doing backflips. I didn't ask you for your time estimate. I'm already aware I'm late, thank you. The silence that followed was thick. His eyes narrowed slightly, studying her as if she were an unusual puzzle he hadn't decided whether to bother solving. Up close, Ava could see faint lines at the corners of his eyes. Not from laughter. They didn't look like they saw much of that, but from years of frowning. Most people, she suspected, would have withered under that scrutiny. Ava's knees wanted to. The rest of her refused. Security, he said suddenly. Her heart jumped into her throat. For a split second, panic flared. Was he throwing her out? Out of the cafe? Out of the building? Out of the city? A broad-shouldered man in a black suit appeared at his side with uncanny speed, as if the command had been a mere thought away. Yes, Mr. Voss? Lucian didn't take his eyes off her. Clear the spill, and make sure whoever mopped this floor last time actually did their job. Someone could get hurt. Ava blinked. That was not what she'd expected. Yes, sir. The guard gestured quickly, and staff hurried over with cloths and a yellow caution sign. Lucian stepped back from the cooling coffee puddle, gaze still locked on Ava. Next time, he said. Tone like ice, watch where you're going. Not everyone will be as forgiving. Forgiving? Ava's jaw almost dropped. She bit back a hysterical laugh. He'd looked at her like she was gum stuck to his shoe and called it forgiveness. I'll keep that in mind, she said sweetly, because if she didn't cling to something, she'd unravel. His gaze flickered just for a second, as if he'd heard the bite under the sugar and didn't quite know what to do with it. Then he turned away, shrugging out of his suit jacket in a smooth motion. He slid it on over the stained shirt, the dark fabric hiding the worst of the damage. Another suited assistant appeared out of nowhere to take the empty coffee cup from Ava's limp fingers, dispose of it, and vanish again. She watched his retreating back, spine straight, shoulders rigid, the cluster of staff gravity orbiting around him as he strode out of the cafe and towards the private elevator at the far end of the lobby. The doors slid open before he even reached them. Of course they did, she thought. The building probably moved out of his way too. Only when the doors closed behind him did sound return to the cafe in a rush. Conversations restarted, low and buzzing. Someone exhaled dramatically. Oh my God, the barista whispered, clutching her chest. You're alive. Ava let out a shaky laugh that sounded more like a wheeze. Does he usually kill people for coffee accidents or something? The barista blinked. No, usually he doesn't talk to anyone who isn't on his calendar. That was weirdly worse. Was that really him? Ava asked, her brain still trying to catch up. Lucian Voss in the flesh, the girl said, eyes wide. He literally owns this building. And like half the skyline. Of course he did. Ava swallowed and glanced at the gleaming clock on the far wall. 3 minutes past the hour. The interview. Oh no. She straightened, panic slamming back into her. I have to go. Good luck, the barista whispered, as if sending someone off to war. And maybe? Don't mention the coffee. The lobby of Voss Tower was one long, expensive insult. Everything gleamed. Polished marble floors, glass walls that seemed to stretch into the clouds, minimalist sculptures that probably cost more than her entire building. People moved with purpose. Earpieces in, briefcases swinging, heels clicking in confident staccato across the floor. Ava hurried to the bank of public elevators, clutching her bag to her side. She caught her reflection in the brushed metal doors. Messy dark hair that refused to obey the single clip she'd wrestled it into. A cheap blouse that pulled slightly across the chest. A skirt that sat just a little off-center if she didn't keep yanking it straight. Cheap flats that had once been black and were now some unfortunate shade of grayish-brown, thanks to yesterday's rain. She looked like exactly what she was, a girl from nowhere trying to pretend she belonged here. The doors opened with a soft chime. Ava stepped inside with a group of strangers, pressed the button for the 20th floor, and forced herself to breathe. This interview mattered. She'd applied for everything in the last 72 hours. Retail, hospitality, cleaning jobs, admin roles, anything. Voss International had been a long shot, but she'd sent in her resume on a whim, attached a cover letter she'd poured her last shred of optimism into, and somehow, miraculously, she'd been called in for a junior assistant position. If she got this job, she could fix things, catch up on rent, maybe save a little, maybe not constantly lie awake counting every dollar and wondering what would break next. If she blew it, she cut that thought off. No, she wasn't going to blow it. Coffee CEO incidents aside, she was here now. She could do this. She had to. The elevator sped upwards, smooth and silent. Her ears popped on floor 15. On floor 20, the doors opened to another world. The 20th floor reception area looked like something out of a magazine. Light poured in through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating sleek white desks, soft gray chairs, and art that probably had its own security system. A woman with a razor-sharp bob sat behind the reception desk, typing with practiced efficiency. Ava stepped forward. "Hi, I'm here for the 10 o'clock interview." Ava Reed. The receptionist glanced up, eyes sweeping over her in a single, efficient pass. "You're late." "I know, I'm so sorry," Ava said quickly. "There was an accident downstairs, but I'm here now." The woman's expression didn't soften, but she nodded towards a seating area. "You're with Human Resources. Take a seat, Ms. Lawson will be with you shortly." Ava exhaled in relief. Not immediately turned away. That was something. She perched on the edge of a chair, hands twisted together in her lap. Man in a navy suit and a woman in a cream dress sat on either side of the waiting area, both looking somehow more polished. The woman scrolled on her phone, cool and relaxed. The man was quietly rehearsing something under his breath. Ava tried not to stare. Time stretched. Just as her nerves were starting to fray, a woman in her early 40s stepped out from a side corridor, holding a tablet. Blonde hair in a neat twist, tailored charcoal dress, no-nonsense heels. Her badge read, Clara Lawson, Human Resources Director. "Ava Reed?" she called. Ava shot to her feet. "Yes, that's me." Clara's gaze was sharp but not unkind. "Come with me." They walked down a hallway lined with glass offices, each one housing people on phones, in meetings, staring intensely at screens. Ava caught flashes of charts, graphs, numbers, a whole universe of money and power ticking away inside these walls. Clara led her into a smaller meeting room with a round table and 2 chairs. She sat, gestured for Ava to do the same, and tapped the tablet screen. "Your resume is unconventional," Clara said, brows lifting slightly. That was a polite way of saying scattered. Ava folded her hands on her knees. "I know my experience is in corporate, but you've worked since you were 16, Clara continued, scanning. "Diner server, retail associate, part-time night cleaner, receptionist at an auto repair shop." She glanced up. "And no gaps." "I couldn't afford gaps," Ava said before she could swallow the honesty back. Something flickered in Clara's eyes. "Your references spoke highly of your work ethic." Relief flickered in Ava's chest. "That's good to hear. However," Clara went on, "this is Voss International. The environment here can be demanding, fast-paced, unforgiving. This role would have you working under high pressure, with very senior executives. The smallest mistakes can have outsized consequences. Are you sure that's something you're prepared for?" Ava thought of eviction notices, of electricity bills with red stamps, of her stomach twisting every time she opened her bank app. "Yes," she said simply. "I'm sure." Clara watched her for a long moment, as if weighing something beyond the words. "Why do you want to work here?" The expected answer. "I admire Voss. International strategic position in the global market. I want to grow my career in a prestigious environment. I'm passionate about corporate excellence." The honest answer slammed into Ava's chest instead. "Because I need this. Because I'm tired of jobs where people snap their fingers and treat me like I'm invisible. Because I want to feel like I have a chance at more." She picked her words carefully. I've worked in places where nothing ever changed, she said, where everything was always barely holding on. I've read about Voss International. It's powerful, stable. I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm used to it. She exhaled slowly. I want the hard work to matter somewhere. Clara's expression didn't give much away, but her gaze softened a fraction. That's a better answer than most, she said. We've had applicants tell me they want free coffee and a nice view. I'll happily take those too, Ava admitted. But I won't expect them to pay my bills. A small, startled laugh escaped Clara, quick and genuine. She seemed to catch herself, straightened and nodded. All right, she said. Let's talk specifics. The role is for a junior assistant in the executive support team. Then, if that goes well, you may be assigned to support a particular executive in time. You'd be handling scheduling, communications, preliminary research, and everything else they decide to drop in your lap. Everything? Ava echoed faintly. Everything, Clara confirmed. This is not a 9-to-5 job. It can mean late nights, early mornings, weekend calls. You will see people at their most stressed. Not everyone is easy to work with. She held Ava's gaze intentionally. This isn't meant to scare you. It's just the reality. Ava thought of a man with steel gray eyes and coffee cooling on a white shirt. Yeah, she had a small taste of not easy. I understand, she said. And I'm okay with that. Clara nodded slowly, as if that answer matched something. She'd already decided about Ava. Give me an example of a time you were under pressure and had to make a quick decision. The questions flowed from there, situational, behavioral, practical. Ava did her best, dragging up stories from years of juggling triple shifts and needy customers and broken equipment. When she finished recounting the time she'd handled a fire alarm, a drunk customer, and a broken dishwasher in the same hour at the diner, Clara leaned back slightly, studying her. You don't rattle easily, do you? She asked. I rattle, Ava said honestly. I just don't have the luxury of falling apart. That earned her another small, reluctant smile. We'll be finishing up the interviews today and tomorrow, Clara said, straightening her tablet. You should hear back from us by the end of the week. A familiar cold weight settled in Ava's stomach. Waiting, hoping, not knowing. I understand, she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. Thank you for the opportunity. She rose when Clara did, shook her offered hand, and followed her back down the hallway. As they passed a glass-walled conference room, movement caught her eye. Lucian Voss stood at the head of a long table, speaking to a row of seated executives. Even through the glass, his presence crackled. One hand rested on the table, the other moving in sharp, economical gestures as he spoke. The stain on his shirt was gone, replaced by a new white shirt under the same dark jacket. His expression was focused, fierce, cutting through whatever argument was happening inside that room. For a second, his gaze flicked towards the hallway. Ava froze. He saw her. Those steel-gray eyes brushed over her like the sweep of a blade. No recognition. No sign that this was the girl who had doused him in coffee 20 minutes ago and told him she hadn't asked for his opinion. Of course he didn't recognize her, she thought, heat prickling behind her eyes. To him, she was probably just background noise. Another nameless face floating through his building. Clara's voice pulled her forward. This way, Ms. Reed. Ava tore her gaze from the conference room and followed her back to the reception. Back to the lift, back to the uncertainty waiting below. By the time she stepped out of Voss Tower, the sky had shifted from pale blue to a hazy white. The city buzzed around her, honking cars, murmuring crowds, the distant wail of a siren. She paused on the sidewalk, letting the tower's shadow fall over her. For a long moment, she just stood there. She'd done her best. That was all she could control. She adjusted the strap on her bag and started walking, weaving through people who didn't look like they'd ever worried about rent a day in their lives. Behind her, several floors above, a man in a glass conference room paused mid-sentence. Is there a problem, Mr. Voss? One of the executives ventured, as Lucian's gaze drifted towards the city view. Lucian didn't answer immediately. His mind flicked back, unbidden, to a girl with wide brown eyes and trembling hands who had looked him in the face and said, I didn't ask you for your time estimate. People didn't talk to him like that. People didn't meet his eyes like that and hold their ground. Not when they were standing in the building his decisions paid for. He'd expected her to crumble, to beg, to shrink. Instead, she'd burned quietly. Anger and fear and stubbornness mixed into something that had lodged itself in his memory like a thorn. "Mr. Voss?" The executive prompted again, nervous now. Lucian's jaw flexed once. He dragged his attention back to the table, to the figures glowing on the screen. "Nothing," he said coolly. "Continue." He buried the image of her in the mental pile of things that did not matter. He didn't know yet that the universe, in its cruel humor, had just dumped the one person who could upend his perfectly controlled life directly into his path. And she wasn't going to move easily. Chapter 2. A Sign to the Devil. The email arrived 15 minutes after Ava got home. She'd barely kicked off her flats and dragged herself onto the second-hand sofa, which had exactly one spring poking through the cushion, when her phone buzzed in her skirt pocket. From HR Department, Voss International. Subject, interview outcome. Her heart stopped. That was too fast. Way too fast. Fast meant rejection, right? No one accepted candidates in 15 minutes. That wasn't how the universe worked, not her universe anyway. Her fingers trembled as she tapped the notification. "Dear Ms. Reed, thank you for attending your interview with Voss International. We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected to move forward to the next stage of the hiring process." Ava shot upright. Selected. Selected. Her vision blurred for a second, relief slamming into her so hard she felt dizzy. "You will begin as a probationary junior assistant, effective immediately. Please arrive tomorrow at 8 a.m. Dress code, corporate. Report to the Executive Support Office on level 20. A supervisor will assign your responsibilities." Ava blinked, reread, then reread again. She got the job. She actually got the job. A sound escaped her, something between a gasp and a laugh, and she clapped, her hand over her mouth, terrified her neighbors would hear and assume she was having a breakdown. Well, she was having a breakdown, but a good one. She read the email again, her heart swelling with something warm and light and terrifying. She had a chance. She had a lifeline. And tomorrow morning, she had to walk back into Voss Tower and try not to spill anything on anyone important, especially anyone with gray eyes and expensive shirts. Ava groaned, flopping back on the sofa and covering her face with both hands. "Don't think about him," she muttered. She immediately thought about him, his stare, his voice, that look, icy, sharp, assessing, right before she'd told him off in front of half the cafe. Oh God, what if he remembered her? What if he complained to HR? What if she got fired before she even started? She squeezed her eyes shut, forcing herself to breathe. "No," she whispered to the dusty ceiling. "Tomorrow is a clean start." It had to be. The next morning, Ava was at Voss Tower by 7:42 a.m. Her hair was brushed into a neat low bun. Her blouse was freshly ironed, if you ignored that one. Rebellious wrinkle that refused to die. Her skirt was the only corporate-looking one she owned. Her shoes pinched slightly, borrowed from a neighbor 2 doors down, but they looked the part. She looked like she belonged. Or at least, she looked like someone trying very hard to look like she belonged. The elevator ride to the 20th floor felt both endless and too short. When the doors opened, she found Clara Lawson waiting at the reception desk. Ms. Lawson nodded approvingly. "Good, you're early." Ava couldn't help a tiny smile. "I didn't want to risk being late again." "Understandable." Clara gestured for her to follow and led her through the open concept workspace behind reception. Dozens of assistants sat at sleek desks, typing, calling, scheduling, moving with purposeful efficiency. "You'll start with general support tasks," Clara explained as they walked. "Internal memos, call routing, coordination, that sort of thing. Once we see where your strengths are, you may be assigned to a specific executive." Ava nodded, absorbing every word, determined to prove she wasn't a mistake. They stopped at a cluster of smaller desks near the large windows. "This will be your station," Clara said. "There's a list of morning tasks on the screen. If you have questions, ask any of the senior assistants." Ava exhaled, nerves settling as she sat down. The desk was immaculate, the computer sleek, the city sprawling below her through the window. She could do this. She would do this. She clicked the screen awake and froze. A notification sat at the top of the dashboard, marked Urgent, Priority Red. Executive assignment pending. Temporary personal assistant required. Subject, Mr. Lucian Voss. Supervisor approval, required immediately. Ava's blood turned to ice. No. No, 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 no. Ms. Lawson? Ava squeaked. Clara glanced at her tablet. Ah, I was about to speak to you about that. Ava's heart did a full somersault. Speak to me about… Which part? Clara turned, expression calm, unbothered. Mr. Voss's senior assistant is on unexpected medical leave. He requires temporary coverage. He specifically told us to assign someone fresh. Someone unconnected to office politics. Fresh. Unconnected. Ava felt physically ill. You'll be with him for today, Clara continued. Possibly the rest of the week, depending on circumstances. You'll shadow his usual workflow, deliver documents, monitor his schedule, keep him on time. Ava gripped the edge of her desk. Ms. Lawson, I just started… Which makes you perfect, Clara said simply. Mr. Voss doesn't like being slowed down by people who think they already know how he operates. You're new. You'll do exactly what he tells you. That was probably true. Ava swallowed hard. Oh, okay, but do I need special training or… You need efficiency, Clara said. Discretion and thick skin. She paused, especially with him. The words with him dropped into Ava's chest like a stone. He's already in, Clara added. You should go to his floor now, 29th. Ava stood on unsteady legs. 29th floor, the top. Of course the devil lived in the penthouse. Clara placed a hand lightly on Ava's shoulder. He may be demanding, but he respects competence. Just follow instructions exactly. Don't take things personally. Ava nodded numbly. Good girl, Clara said. Take the executive elevator. And good luck. Good luck. A warning disguised as encouragement. Ava forced her legs to move across the polished floor toward the exclusive elevator. Marked, authorized access only. Her ID badge beeped. The doors slid open. As the elevator climbed, Ava's breath came shorter and shorter. First job, first morning, first assignment. And she was walking straight into the office of the man she'd dumped coffee on yesterday. The doors opened with a soft chime. Ava stepped out into silence. The 29th floor was nothing like the rest of the building. It was tall ceilings, black marble, modern art, and a long corridor leading to a pair of dark double doors. His office. Ava wiped her palms, straightened her shoulders, and whispered to herself, Don't spill anything. Don't insult him. Don't get fired. She lifted her hand and knocked once. Enter. His voice, deep, smooth, and threateningly calm, rolled through the air. Ava pushed the door open. Lucian Voss looked up from behind his desk. Those steel-gray eyes met hers. Recognition hit him instantly. His pen stilled. His expression didn't change. If anything, it sharpened. A slow, unreadable silence filled the space between them. Ava's heart hammered against her ribs. He leaned back in his chair, gaze cold and razor-sharp. You, he said. The coffee girl. Ava nearly died on the spot. His eyes swept over her outfit, her badge, her trembling hands. A moment passed, then another. Finally, his lips curved, barely into something that wasn't quite a smirk, and wasn't quite approval. So, he said quietly, you'll be assisting me today. It wasn't a question, it was a sentence. Ava swallowed. Hard. Yes, sir. His gaze lingered on her face, unreadable and unnerving. Then he spoke, voice low and absolute. Let's see, Lucian said. If you're half as bold in my office as you were in my lobby… Ava's breath caught. This was going to be the longest day of her life. Chapter 3. The first test. Ava stepped fully inside the office, resisting the urge to shrink into herself. Her heartbeat thudded loudly in her ears, competing with the quiet hum of the city skyline spread behind. Lucian, like a kingdom, he ruled alone. The door eased shut behind her with a soft click, one that sounded far too much like a trap ceiling. Lucian didn't stand to greet her. Of course he didn't. He watched her the way a predator watches something small and interesting wander too close. Calm, sharp, calculating. I'm surprised, he said, tapping the end of his pen against his desk. They sent you. Ava forced a breath. Ms. Lawson said your assistant is out and someone new was needed. His gaze swept over her, impersonal but dangerously observant. New, that would be you. She wasn't sure if that was an insult or a statement. With him, probably both. Lucian set the pen down. Well then, Ms. Reed, was it? Yes, she replied. He tilted his head slightly. Come here. It wasn't a hostile command exactly, more like an expectation, as if he was accustomed to the world obeying his voice. Ava walked toward the desk, each step precise. She had never been this close to him before. He was more intimidating at this distance. All angles and quiet power, his eyes even colder up close. "Your role is simple," he said. "You do what I ask, immediately, accurately, without debate." Ava blinked. Without debate? Clearly he had not met her yesterday. She nodded anyway. "I'll do my best." He raised an eyebrow. "Your best. Should I be worried?" A spark of irritation flared in her chest. "Not unless you expect me to do your taxes in the first hour." The room fell silent. Lucian's eyes froze on her face. The pen in his hand stopped moving. For a heartbeat, Ava thought she'd gone too far. Then something unbelievable happened. The corner of his mouth, barely, just barely, lifted. A half smirk. A ghost of amusement. Gone just as fast. "Interesting," he murmured. "You challenge easily." She straightened. "Only when provoked." He leaned forward slightly. "Good to know." Before she could respond, he slid a folder across the desk toward her. It skidded to a stop right in front of her hands. "Your first task," he said. "Summaries of these contracts. Highlight every clause that deals with liability, asset transfer, or equity dilution. Send the summary to my email within 20 minutes. Ava's stomach dropped. 20 minutes? There are 8 contracts. 17, actually. Lucian reached for his coffee cup. "If you can't manage it, I'll reassign you by noon." A test, a cruel one. Ava inhaled deeply. "I'll try." Lucian's gaze sharpened. "I didn't say try, Ms. Reed, I said do it." She exhaled through her nose, grabbed the folder, and moved quickly to the work table near the window. For the next 10 minutes, she skimmed and summarized as fast as she could, fingers flying over the laptop keyboard. She didn't know corporate law, but she knew how to read, and she knew how to work under pressure. She highlighted. She condensed. She typed like her life depended on it, because this job kind of did. Her heart pounded as the 20th minute approached. She double-checked the last paragraph, fixed 2 grammar mistakes, and hit send. 20 minutes and 34 seconds. Close enough? Ava closed her eyes and whispered, "Please let this be okay." Behind her, the sound of typing paused. Then, She froze. Was that good? Bad? A grunt? A judgment? A threat? Lucian's voice cut through before she could spiral. "Come here." Her palms were sweatier than she wanted to admit as she stepped back toward his desk. Lucian didn't look up. He simply scrolled through her summary, expression unreadable. After a long, painful moment, he spoke. "You work fast." Ava blinked. "Thank you." "I didn't say it was done well," he added. She bit her tongue. He kept reading. Then, "But it is." He closed the laptop. Acceptable, efficient. A wave of relief loosened her shoulders. Then he looked up, and the relief vanished. "Don't relax," he said. "I'm not finished testing your limits." Her pulse fluttered. "How many limits do you think I have?" He studied her for a long moment, those silver eyes scanning her face. "That," he said softly, "is what I intend to find out." Ava's breath caught. Before she could respond, his desk phone rang. He answered it instantly. "Yes, send them up. I'll deal with it." He hung up and stood. It was startling how tall he was, how the room seemed smaller when he moved. "A meeting," he said, already walking toward the door. "Walk with me." Ava scrambled to grab a notepad. "Is there anything I should know?" she asked. "Yes," Lucian said, stepping into the hallway with her at his heel. "Don't speak unless I tell you. Don't react to anything you hear." She nodded, trying to keep up with his long strides. "And most importantly," he added, pausing at the elevator, "don't interrupt me." "I wouldn't." "You did yesterday," he said. Ava flushed. That was different. His gaze flicked downward, lingering on her face. "Was it?" She opened her mouth, closed it. "I was stressed." He said. "So was I." The elevator doors opened. They stepped inside. Lucian pressed the button for floor 31, boardroom suite. Ava's breath stilled. "Do I need to bring anything?" she asked. "Yes," he said. She waited. Lucian looked down at her with unsettling intensity. "Bring your spine, Ms. Reed," he said calmly. "The people we're meeting don't hesitate to snap weak ones." Ava swallowed. He turned away, attention already shifting back to the emails on his phone. But the faintest flicker of something, curiosity, annoyance, interest, lingered in his expression. She wasn't just a temp worker to him. She was a variable, a challenge, a disruption he hadn't expected. And whether he admitted it or not, Lucian Voss was paying attention. Chapter 4. the man without cracks. If the boardroom on the 31st floor had a temperature, Ava was certain it would be sub-zero. Everything inside shimmered with polished intimidation. Black marble floors, a 20-seat table long enough to hold a United Nations meeting, and a skyline view that made the rest of the city look like toys. Lucian walked in like he owned the oxygen. Ava followed 2 steps behind, quiet, observant, notebook clutched to her chest. 5 men in suits were already waiting, their expressions tight and ambitious. The moment Lucian entered, all 5 stood simultaneously, reflexive, automatic. "Mr. Voss," one of them said, forcing a smile. "Thank you for seeing us." Lucian didn't smile back. He didn't need to. He sat. They sat after him. "Let's not waste time," Lucian said, voice smooth and carved from steel. "You requested a renegotiation. Explain." Ava stayed behind him to the right, out of the direct line of attention, but close enough to hear everything. She watched the men across the table shift, one clearing his throat. "Our concern," the spokesman began, "is that the merger arrangement places our board at a disadvantage. We'd hoped to revisit." "No." Lucian's voice cut through the air, sharp and absolute. The men exchanged uncertain glances. "Mr. Voss," another tried, "surely you can understand." "No," Lucian repeated. "Your board signed the agreement." "That agreement stands. Perhaps if we all look again at the clause regarding—" Lucian's eyes sharpened. "No." It was remarkable, Ava realized. He didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need explanations. He simply dismantled them with a single syllable. He was immovable, untouchable, absolute authority wrapped in flawless control. The men grew increasingly flustered, stumbling over their own arguments. It was like watching lambs try to negotiate with a wolf. Then one of the executives made a mistake. A bold one. "Mr. Voss, with respect," the man said, pushing a document forward. "It seems your assistant neglected to include the updated valuation figures in the last briefing packet. That oversight impacts our projections." Ava jolted. "Assistant? Her?" But Lucian didn't even look at her. He leaned back slowly in his chair, eyes narrowing with lethal precision. "My assistant," he said, voice soft, "was not assigned to me until this morning." The man gulped. Lucian tapped a finger once on the table. "Which means you are either misinformed, tap, or lying." Silence fell like a guillotine. Ava felt the air thicken. The man visibly paled. Lucian continued, perfectly calm. "I don't tolerate either." The executive swallowed. "It was an assumption, Mr. Voss." "Assumptions," Lucian said, "are what people make when they cannot produce facts." The man fell silent. No weakness, no hesitation, just precise, controlled dominance. Lucian turned his gaze to Ava. She stiffened. "Ms. Reed." "Yes," she said, startled. "Open the final file from last quarter. Page 6. She scrambled for the folder, found page 6, and stepped forward to hand it to him. But the glossy sheet slipped from her fingers. Only a little, only half an inch. It would have fluttered to the ground, except Lucian's hand moved, fast, effortlessly. He caught the paper mid-air, 2 fingers pinching it before it could fall. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look inconvenienced. He looked like this was simply the only possible outcome. Ava swallowed hard. He wasn't just intimidating. He was terrifyingly competent. Lucian placed the packet on the table, flipped it open, turned it so the executives could see, and pointed to a paragraph with sharp precision. "This is the valuation," he said. "It was sent. It was acknowledged. And it was confirmed by your own finance officer." The men looked like they wanted the floor to swallow them. Lucian stood. The room froze. "This meeting," he said, "is over." No one argued. No one dared. The men packed their bags with the desperation of people trying to exit a lion's den before its occupant changed his mind. Ava stepped back as Lucian strode to the door. The executives filed out after him in a stumbling, embarrassed line. When the last one left, the room finally emptied. Lucian remained, still, silent. Ava hovered by the door, trying to steady her heartbeat. "Mr. Voss?" she asked softly. He didn't turn. "Do you know why they panicked?" She blinked. "Because—" "You said no?" Lucian's lips barely curved. "Partially." He turned toward her then, eyes colder than the marble behind him. "They panicked because they expected to find a crack," he said. "A vulnerability, a mistake, a pause. And I don't allow either." Ava's breath hitched. Lucian moved past her, opening the door with effortless authority. "Come," he said. "We're not done." She hurried after him. As they walked down the corridor, Ava realized something startling. He wasn't invincible because he lacked weaknesses. He was invincible because he refused to acknowledge them, because he never allowed anyone close enough to see anything human at all, because every inch of him was built to defend an empire. He didn't trust anyone else to hold. But what Ava didn't know yet was simple. She had already seen more than anyone else. Everyone else saw a perfect machine, a flawless king. But she had seen his hand move, quick, instinctive, precise, to keep something from falling. Not a weakness, not a crack, but a reflex he had no reason to show, something human. And in Lucian Voss's world, that was the rarest thing of all. Chapter 5, The Limits Test. Ava had been working under Lucian Voss for 5 hours. 5 hours of constant movement. 5 hours of instructions delivered with precision and zero patience. 5 hours of sprinting between the 29th floor and the 20th, carrying folders, updating schedules, forwarding emails, arranging calls, picking up documents from legal, revising meeting notes, and reprinting the ones that Lucian rejected, without explanation. He didn't bark. He didn't yell. He didn't even look irritated, which somehow made it worse. He simply expected perfection. Every time. And when Ava delivered it, he moved the bar higher. By 3 p.m., her legs were jelly, her fingers cramped, and her brain felt like it had been put through a blender. At 3:07 p.m., Lucian said, "Ms. Reed, are you done with the financial comparison matrix?" Ava blinked at the computer screen through slightly glazed eyes. "Almost." "You said that 20 minutes ago." "I did," she admitted. Lucian's eyes flicked up. "Why is it not finished?" 1,000 answers ran through her head. "Because I'm new. Because you gave me 6 tasks at once. Because I'm tired. Because I'm human." But she didn't say any of that. "I'll finish it now," she said instead. Lucian didn't nod in approval. Approval was not something he seemed to deal in. But he also didn't dismiss her. He simply returned to his monitor, fingers typing at a speed she could barely comprehend. Ava refocused on the spreadsheet, trying to ignore the exhaustion creeping through her bones. Hours passed. Lucian worked like a machine. Ava worked like someone desperately trying to keep up with one. At 5:30 p.m., everyone else in the building began packing up. She heard faint goodbyes echoing from the executive support floor below. Lucian didn't even glance at the time. "Ms. Reed," he said without looking up. "Reorganize these files by sector, quarter, and risk factor." Ava stared at the stack of binders. There were a lot. Like, could be used to build a small fort, a lot. "Yes, Mr. Voss," she said, though her hands trembled slightly as she reached for them. She carried the first stack to the side table, the one she'd learned was hers for sorting, and began working through the mountain. 5:45 p.m., 6:10 p.m., 6:45 p.m. Her eyes burned. Her movements slowed. Her head felt heavy. She didn't dare sit. She knew if she sat, she'd never get back up again. Lucian remained at his desk, silent, unreadable, relentless. Every so often he gave another instruction. Every time she answered. Every time she obeyed. And slowly her stamina drained away. By 7:20 p.m., the building was silent. Most lights on the lower floors had gone off automatically. Only the top executive floors remained bright, glowing like a pair of eyes in the dark city. Ava stood at the side table, reading a paragraph for the 5th time. It still didn't make sense. Her vision blurred. Ava blinked hard. She blinked again. Her head dipped once. Twice. A 3rd time. Her fingers loosened around the binder. She swayed, and before she knew it, she fell asleep, standing up, against the side table, face tilted downward, hair falling over her eyes, arms folded loosely against the heap of folders she'd been organizing. It happened so quietly that Lucian didn't notice at first. He finished an email. He signed a contract electronically. He reviewed a proposal. Then silence. Too much silence. He glanced up, saw the stillness, and frowned. Lucian stood, expecting to reprimand her for stopping work, until he approached and realized she hadn't stopped by choice. She was fully asleep, leaning against the table, breathing softly, exhaustion written across every inch of her. Lucian stared at her, not with softness, not with warmth, and definitely not with affection, but with assessment. He studied her like she was a problem in need of a solution. "Ridiculous," he muttered. He checked the time. She'd been working 14 hours. Most interns would have cried by noon. Most new assistants would have quit before lunch. But she... He cut off the thought. He didn't care why. He just cared whether it affected his efficiency. Lucian tapped the table lightly. Ms. Reed. No response. He tapped again, sharper. Ava. Her head jerked up so fast she staggered. Her eyes were wide, unfocused, panic flooding her expression. I'm awake. I was. She stopped, face flushing in humiliation. Lucian watched her without expression. She braced herself for anger, but instead he said, You are of no use to me like this. Ava's throat tightened. Gather your things, he said. You're done for today. She blinked. But the files, I don't expect you to finish them while half-conscious. She swallowed. I can stay, she said quietly. I'm not trying to disappoint. You're not staying, he interrupted. You're not functioning. Ava exhaled shakily. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, he said. It wastes time. She stared at him, confused. Lucian simply stepped back toward his desk. You'll resume tomorrow morning. 8 sharp. Yes, Mr. Voss. And Ms. Reed? She paused at the door. Don't fall asleep on company property again. A beat. It looks unprofessional? Ava's cheeks burned. Understood. She left quickly, embarrassment trailing behind her like a second shadow. Lucian watched the empty doorway for 2 seconds longer than necessary. Not out of concern, not out of interest, just calculation. She wasn't weak. She wasn't fragile. But she was human. He'd pushed her to see how far she would go. Now he knew. She'd lasted longer than expected. But she still broke. Lucian returned to his desk, expression returning to that perfect, unshakable mask. He worked another 3 hours alone. If he thought of Ava Reed at all, he didn't acknowledge it. Not even to himself. Chapter 6. Denial Served Cold. Ava arrived at work the next morning with the determination of someone ready to outrun humiliation. She had slept 5 hours. Her head hurt. Her hands still trembled slightly. But she was here, early, and freshly determined not to fall asleep in front of her terrifying boss ever again. When the elevator doors opened onto the 29th floor, she straightened her shoulders, smoothed her blouse, and tried to look like someone who hadn't face-planted on a stack of financial reports. Lucian's office door was cracked open. She hesitated, then knocked softly. Enter, came that familiar controlled voice. Ava stepped in. Lucian was already at his desk, suit immaculate, hair perfect, posture straight. He looked like he hadn't just been awake past midnight, more like he'd been engineered to run flawlessly without sleep. He looked up. His eyes flicked over her once, quick, sharp, assessing. You're early, he said. Ava nodded. I didn't want to be late. Lucian stared at her for a beat too long. Not fondly, not warmly, just intensely, as if trying to recalculate her. Good, he said finally. Sit. Ava sat at the side table, opening her laptop, preparing for another brutal day. She expected him to resume his ice-cold persona. She expected to be ignored and less spoken to. She did not expect what he said next. I reviewed your work last night. Ava froze. Lucian glanced at her. Don't look afraid. If it were unacceptable, you'd know already. She wasn't sure if that was comforting or threatening. You made several mistakes, he said bluntly. But your pace and accuracy were significantly better than expected. Ava blinked. Thank you? That was not praise. Oh. Silence. Lucian turned slightly in his chair, studying her again. The way she sat with tension in her shoulders, the way she held her pen with a firm grip to hide the shake, the faint exhaustion still in her eyes. You worked until you fell asleep, Lucian said. I did not ask for that. Ava flushed. You gave me a lot to do. And you attempted to do all of it in one day. Well, yes, that's how work works. You assigned it, so you attempted to complete it all at once, he finished. I see. She frowned. Is that wrong? Lucian leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. It is inefficient, he said. Exhausted employees make mistakes. Mistakes waste my time. Ava stared at him. So you're saying I should pace myself? No, he said plainly. I'm saying you should work correctly. Not frantically. Her lips pressed together. You didn't exactly mention pacing yesterday. Do you need everything spelled out for you? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Ava's temper flickered, small, quick, dangerous. No, she said evenly. I don't. They held each other's gaze for half a second too long. Something warm sparked, sharp and electric, right in the middle of the tension. Neither of them acknowledged it. Lucian looked away first, not because he wanted to, but because he refused to examine that moment. He reached for the stack of files beside him. "We're starting with the revisions from legal," he said. Voice clipped back into professionalism. "Take these." Ava rose to retrieve them. As she approached, Lucian handed the stack forward. For a brief instant, her fingers brushed his. It was nothing, barely contact, but it was a spark, a tiny static jolt that made both of them pause. A moment too long, a breath too shallow. Ava snatched her hand back instinctively. "Sorry." "No need," Lucian said a little too quickly. "Static." They both pretended it was only static. Ava returned to her desk, cheeks warm. Lucian adjusted his cuffs, jaw tight. He didn't like that moment. He didn't want it. He didn't understand why it stood out. So he did what he always did when something made him uncomfortable. He shut it down. "Completely. Ms. Reed," he said, voice icy. "You will complete those revisions in the order I've placed them. Do not reorganize. Do not multitask. You will finish one, then the next, and so on. Clear?" "Yes, Mr. Voss." "And do not work past 6 today." Ava blinked. "Are you sure?" His eyes cut to hers, sharp and unyielding. "I don't like repeating myself." She swallowed. "Understood." Lucian returned to his laptop. Ava returned to her files. The room filled with silence, thick, charged, and almost too still. No one spoke. No one acknowledged what had happened. But something had shifted. Barely. Quietly. Not feelings. Not yet. Just awareness. Sharp and denied by both of them. Chapter 7. One room, two secrets. The storm hit just as the car pulled up to the hotel. Winds whipped against the glass doors. Rain hammering the pavement in sheets so thick. Ava could barely see the road behind them. Lightning cracked across the sky, slicing through the darkness with white fury. Lucian stepped out of the car first, unbothered by the weather, coat whipping dramatically behind him like some aloof villain in a movie. Ava scrambled out after him, holding her bag over her head as a makeshift umbrella. She failed miserably. By the time she reached the lobby's golden glow, her hair was damp and her blouse clung to her arms. Lucian glanced at her once, eyes drifting over her soaked hair, her shivering shoulders, the worn bag she clutched tightly, before looking away without comment. Or so it seemed. Ava didn't miss the brief tightening of his jaw. The hotel receptionist greeted them with a strained smile. "Mr. Voss, welcome back. I'm so sorry. The storm has caused a power outage on 2 floors. We're working to resolve it." Lucian nodded curtly. "I booked 2 rooms." The receptionist swallowed. "Yes, sir, but due to the outage, we have only 1 functioning room available at the moment." Ava's heart dropped. Lucian's expression didn't change. "Unacceptable." "I know, sir," the man said. "But there is a safety restriction." "Unacceptable," Lucian repeated, colder. Ava stepped forward, clearing her throat softly. "It's fine," she said. "Really. I can sleep in the lobby, or the conference room, or the—" "You're not sleeping in a lobby," Lucian said sharply. The receptionist flinched. Ava did too. Lucian exhaled, irritated, not with her, but with the situation. He turned to the manager. "We'll take the room." The manager nodded quickly and prepared the key. Ava opened her mouth. "Mr. Voss, truly, I can sleep anywhere. I don't mind—" "I mind," he cut in. Her breath caught. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't even kind. It was possessive, controlling, firm. But beneath all that, just beneath it, was something like, "You're under my responsibility right now." Ava didn't argue again. The suite was massive. Soft carpet, tall windows, dark wood furniture, but only 1 bed. Huge, yes, but still one. Ava froze. Lucian barely reacted. "You'll take the bed." "Oh, no," she said quickly. "Absolutely not. I'll take the couch." "No." "Mr. Voss, the bed is yours." His voice didn't rise. It didn't soften. It simply left no room for refusal. Ava gave up and placed her soaked bag on the floor. She pulled out a small bundle of clothes, plain, second-hand, folded carefully to hide their wear. Lucian's eyes flicked over the contents before he turned away, pretending not to have seen the fraying hems or the thin fabric. Pretending because Ava had already noticed the flicker of something in his expression. Awareness. Realization. A puzzle piece snapping into place. She avoided his eyes and ducked into the bathroom to change. Meanwhile, Lucian stood in the center of the room, jaw tight. He wasn't annoyed about the room. He wasn't annoyed about the storm. He wasn't annoyed about the trip. He was annoyed because her bag, her clothes, her shoes yesterday, her tiredness, Her panic when the hotel said there was only one room? Not the kind of panic someone has around a man. The kind someone has around money, around not having enough. He'd seen it before. In people from his past, people he didn't speak about. People who'd worked until they dropped, because they had no choice. A faint, uncomfortable tension crawled down his spine. He did not like this feeling. He didn't want it, so he shoved it down. Ava stepped out wearing a simple, oversized t-shirt and leggings, comfortable, plain, a little worn at the edges. Lucian's eyes flicked to her for 1 second. 1 second too long, not because she looked enticing, but because she looked small, soft, breakable, and something deep in him reacted to that without permission. He immediately crushed the reaction. "You should sleep," he said shortly. "You look exhausted." Ava stiffened. "I'm fine. You were unconscious in my office yesterday." She flushed. "That won't happen again." "It will," he countered. "If you don't sleep." A heartbeat of silence. Ava moved to the bed. Lucian took the couch without question, removing his jacket and loosening his tie. The room dimmed as thunder rumbled outside. Ava climbed under the covers, lying stiffly on her side. He lay on the couch, too tall, too tense, too controlled. They were quiet for a long time. Then, "Mr. Voss?" He didn't open his eyes. "What?" "Thank you." Her voice was soft, honest. "For not making me sleep in the lobby." He didn't respond. He didn't move. But his expression changed. Barely. A shallow exhale, a microscopic softening around the eyes, a tension he couldn't quite explain. "Go to sleep, Ms. Reed," he said finally. "We leave at 7. "Okay." Another pause. "And Ava?" Her heart skipped. "Yes?" "You don't need to thank me for basic decency." She almost laughed, because for him, that was decency. But something in the way he said it, something unguarded, made her cheeks warm in the dark. She fell asleep to the sound of rain, unaware that Lucian didn't fall asleep until hours later. Not because he was uncomfortable, not because of the storm, but because of the quiet, unwelcome awareness settling in his chest. An awareness he absolutely refused to examine and would deny with everything he had. Chapter 8. What He Hears. Ava woke to sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. For a few blissful seconds, she forgot where she was. Then she heard the low murmur of a voice, deep, commanding, unmistakable. Lucian. He was standing near the window, phone pressed to his ear, already in full CEO mode at 7 in the morning. "No delays, no excuses," he said, voice like sharpened steel. "If the shipment doesn't arrive by Thursday, I will personally replace your team." Ava sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. She immediately noticed Lucian was dressed. Crisp suit, perfect tie, cold posture. The couch cushions were slightly disturbed, meaning he had slept there, at least briefly, but he looked as though he'd been awake for hours. He ended the call abruptly, turned, and froze when he saw her awake. A half-second pause, barely noticeable, but it was there. "Morning," she said, voice still groggy. He didn't comment on her sleepiness. He didn't comment on her hair being a soft, messy halo around her face. He simply nodded. "We leave in 20 minutes. Ava nodded and swung her legs out of the bed, then winced. Her foot landed on something sharp. She lifted the small object, a broken strap from her worn-out bag. The leather had finally snapped. Her heart sank. Lucian's eyes flicked to the broken strap in her hand. Something in his expression tightened. "You need a new bag." Ava's cheeks heated. "I know. I will. It just has to last a little longer." "How much longer?" he asked bluntly. She hesitated. "Too long." He noticed the hesitation. He always noticed. He didn't push further, but the line of his jaw hardened. Ava hurried into the bathroom to change, hoping to hide the flush of embarrassment on her face. While she was gone, Lucian stood where she'd left him, staring at the broken strap lying on the carpet. He didn't like this feeling. Not sympathy, not concern, just annoyance. At her bag, at the situation, at the fact that he now knew she couldn't afford something as basic as a replacement. He didn't want to know these things. He didn't want to know that her clothes were worn, that she didn't have money for a hotel room, that she worked until she fainted because she was terrified of losing the job. He didn't want any of this inside his head. He forced the thoughts away as soon as she stepped out of the bathroom. The hotel was buzzing with storm-related chaos. Guests were crowding the dining hall, phones out, complaining loudly. Ava kept her eyes down as they walked, suddenly aware of how out of place she looked next to Lucian, who walked through the room like a blade parting water. They sat at a table near the windows. Ava picked up the menu and immediately flinched. The prices. Her mind started calculating in a panic. One meal here could pay for 2 days of groceries. Lucian watched her face carefully. "You're deciding slowly," he said. "Just reading," she lied. He didn't buy it. "Order something." "I'm not that hungry," she said quickly. "Ava," he said, tone flat, "you're working a full day. You need to eat." Her chest tightened. He wasn't being caring. He wasn't being gentle. He was being practical, uncompromising. But the pressure of his gaze made her cheeks burn. "I'll just get coffee," she said. "No," he replied instantly. She blinked. "What?" "You'll get a meal." She swallowed. "Mr. Voss, I can't—" His eyes sharpened. "You will." He wasn't asking. He wasn't even arguing. He was issuing instructions. Ava reluctantly ordered a simple breakfast, the cheapest thing on the menu. Lucian's jaw tightened again. He noticed that too. After breakfast, they moved toward the lobby to wait for their car. Ava stepped aside to answer a call. She didn't realize Lucian could hear her. "Hi, Mrs. Donovan." "Yes, I know I'm late on rent. I'm trying, I really am. I'll have something this week. I promise." "No, I haven't found a cheaper place yet." Lucian froze mid-step. He had never frozen before. His back stiffened, eyes narrowing slightly as Ava continued. "That one ad you sent me? It was a scam." "Yes, the one bedroom for $180 a week." I know. I just need more time." Her voice cracked, barely. Just a tremble. She quickly swallowed it down. Lucian's fingers curled slowly into fists. Not out of anger at her. At everything else. At the landlord. At the scammers. At the fact that she was doing everything right and still losing. He didn't understand why it irritated him this much. He didn't want to understand. He turned away before she noticed he'd overheard. He didn't want to explain himself. He didn't want to see the look she'd give him. He didn't want her thinking he cared, because he didn't. He couldn't. He refused to. Ava climbed into the car with a shaky exhale. She was quiet, too quiet. Lucian didn't comment. He stared out the window, arms folded, jaw sharp enough to cut glass. Neither of them spoke, but something had shifted. Ava felt it, a heaviness, a silent awareness, a weight in the air. Lucian felt it too. He hated it. He hated how aware he was now of the girl beside him, the girl with the broken bag, the worn clothes, the eviction call, the girl who worked until she collapsed, the girl who didn't complain, the girl who had nothing and still kept going. He didn't want this information in his head. He didn't want to care. He didn't want anything to change. So he stared straight ahead and forced the walls back up. Higher. Stronger. Ava glanced at him once, thinking he looked colder than usual. She was wrong. He wasn't colder. He was shaken, and desperately trying not to be. Chapter 9, The Gala. The Voss International Charity Gala was the kind of event Ava had only ever seen in movies. Crystal chandeliers dripping from vaulted ceilings. A marble staircase wide enough for royalty. A room filled with elegant gowns, sharp tuxedos, and conversations whispered behind champagne glasses. Ava had never felt more out of place in her life. Her dress was borrowed, a soft navy blue gown from her neighbor, who had insisted she take it just this once, sweetheart. It wasn't new. It wasn't expensive. But it fit her well, simple and graceful, hugging her figure softly without drawing too much attention, or so she thought. Because when she stepped into the ballroom, every insecurity screamed at her. The women here dripped diamonds. The men exuded wealth with every polished glance. She took a deep breath and tried her best not to flee. Lucian arrives. Lucian entered the gala 20 minutes later. He didn't walk in. He arrived like a storm front. Black suit tailored to perfection. T-precise. Expression unreadable. Presence commanding enough that conversations faltered as he passed. He shook hands. Gave curt nods. Accepted praise he didn't care for. Then his eyes scanned the room. Not looking for her. Just surveying. Until he found her anyway. Ava Reed, standing alone near a decorative fountain, fidgeting with her small clutch, hair softly curled, dressed simple but striking against the dim gold lights. And something in his chest tightened. Not attraction, not affection, recognition, an awareness, and something he refused to name. His steps slowed, just for a second. Then he forced himself forward. But the image of her lingered in his mind like an after-image burned into his vision. Ava tried to blend into the wall. She was doing fine until she overheard two women whispering a few feet away. She's the new assistant? She looks so plain. Lucian won't keep her long. He wants perfection. Or a model. Laughter. It's almost cute, really. She's trying. Ava's stomach dropped. She turned away, pretending she hadn't heard. But Lucian had heard. He was approaching from behind, unseen, and caught every word. His jaw locked. His eyes went cold, colder than ice, colder than stone. He stepped past the women without acknowledging them. But the temperature in the air dipped drastically. They shrank back instinctively. He didn't scold them. He didn't need to. The look he gave them was enough to silence a room. Ava didn't see him until he was right beside her, his presence like a shadow crossing her path. "You're late," he said. She jumped slightly. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure where to. It doesn't matter." He glanced over her dress again, slow, assessing. "Stay close." "Stay close?" Her breath hitched. "Okay." Not because it sounded romantic. It wasn't. It was protective in the coldest, most possessive way. As if he didn't trust her in this world of power and sharks. Or as if he didn't trust them with her. Lucian offered his arm. Ava hesitated. His eyebrow rose. "You look ridiculous standing like that." "Take the arm." She swallowed and did. Her hand rested lightly on his forearm, and a current shot through both of them. Subtle but undeniable. Lucian ignored it instantly. Ava tried to. They failed. Lucian walked her through the gala like she belonged there. His posture straight and commanding. Hers uncertain, but steadying each time she matched his step. People paused when they passed. Not because of her, because of him. Because he had brought someone. Lucian Voss never brought someone. Whispers followed them like perfume. "Who is she?" "His new assistant, apparently." "She looks sweet." "He's going to eat her alive. Or hire her for 3 days and then fire her like the last one." Ava stiffened. Lucian felt it through his sleeve. His voice lowered. "Ignore them." "That's hard," she whispered. He glanced down at her. Not soft, not kind, just observant. "You handled yesterday's challenges. You can handle rich idiots." Her lips twitched. "Is that supposed to be encouraging?" "No," he said dryly. "But it should be." She looked away, but not before he caught the faint smile she fought to hide. Something warm flickered in his chest. He crushed it immediately. Halfway through the evening, a tall, handsome executive approached. "Ms. Reed, isn't it?" he asked warmly. "Would you honor me with a dance?" Ava froze. She opened her mouth to politely decline. Lucian stepped beside her. "She's busy," he said. The man blinked. "Busy with what?" Lucian didn't answer. He simply stared until the man retreated. Ava stared at him, wide-eyed. "Did you just—" "Yes." You didn't even— That was rude." "Correct." She gaped at him. "Why?" Lucian didn't answer immediately. He didn't want to admit the truth. He didn't like that someone else approached her. He didn't like that she smiled nervously at the idea. He didn't like imagining her dancing with another man. He didn't like any of it. So he defaulted to the only response he knew. "Because he's incompetent," he said simply. "You'd have been bored." Ava crossed her arms. "You don't know that." He stared down at her, and for the first time, his voice softened by a fraction. "I do." For a heartbeat, the air between them shifted. Something warm, something electric, something neither wanted. Ava looked away quickly. Lucian did too. Later in the evening, as the lights dimmed and the music softened, Ava excused herself to stand on the balcony. She needed air, space, a moment to just breathe. Lucian stayed inside, speaking with investors, but his eyes kept flicking to the balcony every few minutes, almost unconsciously. When he finally walked out to check on her, he stopped. Ava stood alone, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the city. The wind tugged at her borrowed dress, her hair loose around her face. She looked lonely, so deeply, quietly lonely. And suddenly Lucian saw everything he hadn't meant to see. A woman who had nothing. No home secure. No family nearby. No money. No safety. No certainty about tomorrow. A woman who kept showing up anyway. Something inside his chest thudded. Once. Sharp and unwelcome. He clenched his jaw hard enough to hurt. He stepped forward. She flinched slightly when she realized he'd come outside. "Are you cold?" he asked. "No," she lied instantly. He shrugged off his jacket and placed it around her shoulders before she could protest. She froze. She didn't speak. He didn't either. The moment was too still, too close, too something. Lucian stepped back immediately, walls snapping back into place. "We're leaving in 10 minutes, he said. Ava nodded, biting her lip, not trusting her voice. They walked back inside together, close, silent, aware, and both absolutely determined to deny whatever had just shifted between them. Chapter 10. The Bag. By Monday morning, Ava had convinced herself the gala hadn't meant anything. Not the way Lucian's eyes kept finding her. Not the jacket he'd draped around her shoulders. Not the way her breath hitched when he stood close. Not the quiet moment on the balcony. That felt too intimate for two people, who were supposed to be strangers. No, none of that meant anything. Lucian Voss didn't feel things. She told herself this over and over as she entered the building, but when she reached the 29th floor, she realized she'd forgotten one important detail. Her bag. The broken strap had finally snapped for good. She'd spent the entire weekend trying to patch it, sewing crooked stitches with shaking fingers, whispering, "Just last one more week. Please," like a prayer. It didn't last. Now it sat clumsily in her arms like a bundle of fabric with no structure. She walked into Lucian's office holding it awkwardly, hoping he wouldn't notice. He noticed instantly. His eyes flicked to the ruined bag, then to her face, then to the bag again. "Your strap is still broken," he said. Ava swallowed. "It's fine, I'm working on fixing it." "It's not fine," he said blandly. "It looks unusable." "It works," she lied. It didn't. Not even a little. Lucian's jaw tightened, but he didn't say more. He simply began dictating tasks for the morning. Emails, revisions, a scheduling conflict, a meeting rescheduled. Ava listened and took notes, pretending she didn't feel embarrassed. Every time she tucked the ruined bag under her chair. By lunch, Ava had gathered the courage to check online for replacement bags. Cheap ones, clearance ones. Every price stung like a slap. A bag was a luxury right now. Rent was due. Food was stretched. A bag could wait. She reminded herself of this as she returned from her short break, pushing the thought down like everything else. She sat at her side table. Lucian typed. She typed. Silence settled in the room. Then, "Ms. Reed." She looked up. "Yes?" Lucian closed his laptop. "There's something I need you to pick up." "Of course." He handed her a small black card, sleek, elegant, obviously expensive. A claim receipt. Ava blinked at it. "For what?" "You'll see." That was not reassuring. "Which floor?" she asked. "Lobby shop," he replied. The lobby boutique was not a normal shop. It was high-end, upscale, and terrifying. A place Ava had never stepped foot in because one wrong glance would cost more than her weekly salary. "Okay," she said, masking her nerves. "I'll get it." She hurried to the elevator. The moment Ava stepped into the store, she felt out of place. The air smelled like perfume that cost more than her electricity bill. Display shelves glittered with handbags behind glass, each tagged with a small metal plaque instead of a paper price tag, a sure sign the prices were too high to print on paper. "Hello," the saleswoman said warmly. "May I help you?" Ava held out the black card. "I'm here to pick up whatever this is." The woman's smile widened, too wide. "Ah, Mr. Voss's order has arrived. Right this way." Ava blinked. "Order? Order? What order?" The woman disappeared behind the counter and returned with a large black box tied with a silver ribbon. Ava stared. "That's the item?" "Yes," the woman said proudly. "It's one of our newest releases. Premium leather, imported." Ava's heartbeat quickened. Premium, imported. This was not good. The woman set the box down, opened it carefully, and Ava's breath caught. Inside was a handbag. Not a bag, a handbag. Sleek, beautiful, structured, elegant. Solid stitching, sturdy straps, soft leather she had never touched in her life. And the price printed discreetly on the corner of the inner tag made her knees wobble. Ava nearly choked. "What?" The saleswoman jumped. "Is something wrong?" Ava pointed at the number on the tag. This must be a mistake. Is that the real price?" "Yes." A pause. "Would you like me to wrap it again?" "No," Ava whispered harshly. "No, I can't take this. This costs more than my rent." The saleswoman blinked, confused. "But it was purchased for Miss Reed." Ava stared. "Purchased for me?" "Yes." Another smile. "Mr. Voss said it was urgent." Ava felt faint. She staggered away from the counter. "He bought this?" "He did." "No, there's been a mistake." "There hasn't." Ava stared at the box like it was radioactive. This purse was worth more money than she had ever held in her life. It was beautiful, impossibly beautiful, the kind of thing someone like her would never even dream of. "What's wrong?" the saleswoman asked gently. Ava's throat tightened. Nothing, she whispered. Just shock. Back upstairs. She marched into Lucian's office, clutching the box to her chest like it might explode. Lucian didn't look up immediately. Set it down, he said. We have a busy afternoon. Mr. Voss. His fingers paused on the keyboard. Slowly, he looked up. Ava swallowed hard. You bought me a bag. Lucian stared at her for a long moment. Then, with the emotional depth of a brick wall, he said, I bought you a tool. Ava blinked. A what? A tool, he repeated. Your job requires transporting documents. Your old bag was failing. That affects my efficiency. So you bought me a luxury handbag? She demanded. It was the most durable option available. At that price? He didn't flinch. It's just a number. It's not just a number to me. Their eyes locked. Ava was flustered, overwhelmed, embarrassed. Lucian was unreadable. She shook her head. I can't accept this. You already did, he said. I didn't agree. You picked it up. You told me to pick it up. I thought it was for work. It is for work. Ava felt her voice break. Lucian, it's too much. He froze. She realized her mistake instantly. She had said his first name. Soft. Accidental. Unmeant? Lucian inhaled once, sharply. The only sign the name affected him at all. When he spoke, his voice was lower. You need it, he said simply. But no arguments. It's expensive. I don't care. I care. Silence stretched between them. Ava lowered the box slightly, her fingers trembling. It's too generous, she whispered. Lucian's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. It isn't generosity, he said. It's practicality. She shook her head. No, it's more than that. Lucian stood slowly, not aggressively, not angrily, just deliberately. He approached her, stopping a few feet away, his voice quiet but firm. I am not doing this for charity, Ava. He held her gaze. You're my assistant. You need proper tools. End of discussion. Her cheeks burned. Her heart thudded. He wasn't being kind. He wasn't being romantic. He wasn't being soft. He was being Lucian. Cold, blunt, practical. But beneath it, deep, hidden, there was something else. A flicker of protectiveness he refused to acknowledge. A spark he immediately buried. Now, he said, stepping back, armor sliding into place again. Sit down. We have work. Ava placed the box gently on the side table, her hands still shaking. She wasn't sure what confused her more. The fact he bought it, the fact he refused to admit he cared, or the fact that this, all of this, made something warm and terrifying bloom in her chest, something she wasn't ready to face, something he would deny until the end of time. Chapter 11, The Breaking Point. Ava tried to work. She really did, but every time she looked at the new handbag, still sitting in its sleek, black box on the side table, her chest squeezed. It wasn't the price. It wasn't the shock. It was the way Lucian had reacted when she pushed back. Not angry, not annoyed, just still, too still. Like he was feeling something he didn't have a name for. Ava chewed her lip and tried to focus on the document in front of her, but her head was a fog of thoughts. She finally stood and walked toward his desk. Mr. Voss, she said softly. Lucian didn't look up immediately. His fingers continued typing another 3 seconds. Precise, measured, before he lifted his eyes. Yes? Ava swallowed. She hadn't planned this far. I'm still thinking about the bag. Lucian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. We already settled that. No, she said, voice trembling slightly. You declared it settled. I didn't. He slowly closed his laptop. A sign she now had his full attention. A dangerous sign. Ava, he said, voice low. You were given a tool for your job. That's all. It didn't feel like all, she whispered. A quiet beat passed. Lucian exhaled through his nose, a sound of restrained frustration. Explain, he said. Her heart thudded. You've known me for what? A couple of weeks, she said. You don't owe me anything. So why would you buy something that expensive? His eyes held hers, steady, unreadable, storm gray. Then he rose from his chair. He walked around the desk, stopping far too close. Ava's breath stuttered. He wasn't touching her. He wasn't crowding her. But he might as well have been. I don't repeat myself, Lucian said softly. It was a necessary purchase. Necessary? She challenged. For who? His eyes flickered, just slightly. For both of us. Her lips parted. He looked away first. His gaze landed on her worn flats, the way the sole had begun to separate. the faint tear in the side of her skirt she had tried to hide behind her coat. She saw him notice. Her cheeks flamed. "Don't look at that." "I already did," he said quietly. She turned away in embarrassment, but Lucian's hand lifted, hesitated, then gently, carefully touched her elbow. Just for a moment. Ava froze. His hand was warm. His touch was light but steady, as if he knew even a fraction more pressure would be too much. When she didn't pull away immediately, he spoke again. "Ava," he said, voice lower. "You are working hard, too hard sometimes." Her eyes widened. "That's what people do when they need money," she whispered. "Yes." His expression changed, barely. I noticed. A beat of stunned silence fell between them. Ava blinked up at him. "You noticed?" He held her gaze, expression tightened with something he refused to name. "I'm not blind," he said. "I see what you try to hide." A tiny, breathless silence. Something warm flickered in her chest. Something dangerous flickered in his. "You shouldn't look so closely," she whispered. "I can't help it," he said before he could stop himself. Her breath caught. Lucian realized what he'd said, and his eyes hardened instantly, as if slamming the door shut on something uninvited. He stepped back. Too fast. The distance made her chest hurt a little. He straightened his suit jacket, the mask sliding firmly back into place. "We're done discussing this," he said, voice clipped. "Go back to work." Ava stared at him for a long moment, searching for the man who said, "I can't help it." He wasn't there anymore, or rather, he was buried under steel and denial. She nodded slowly and turned away. He watched her walk back to her desk. He didn't mean to. His eyes simply followed her, lingering on the curve of her shoulder, the sway of her hair, the quiet determination in the way she sat down. Lucian pressed a hand against the edge of his desk, fingers curling. One slip, one sentence he shouldn't have said, one touch he shouldn't have allowed himself. He would bury it. He would ignore it. He would not repeat it. But the truth had already escaped, and Ava felt it, and so did he, even if neither of them dared look directly at it. Chapter 12, The Ride Home. It was almost 9 p.m. when the office finally went quiet. The entire building was dark except for the 29th floor, where Lucian Voss and Ava Reed were still working. Him with relentless precision, her with quiet, stubborn determination. But it was Ava who finally broke the silence. She yawned, not politely, not softly, a full, exhausted, involuntary sound. She slapped a hand over her mouth immediately. "Sorry." Lucian looked up sharply. "Why are you still here?" he demanded. She blinked. "Because you said we had to finish the projections today." "Yes," he said. "But I didn't tell you to stay past the point of collapsing." "I'm not collapsing." "You yawned so hard I heard your jaw crack." Ava flushed. "It was one yawn." "You've yawned 12 times, he corrected. Her head snapped up. "You counted?" Lucian froze. His expression didn't change. But the fact he'd slipped said more than any blush ever could. "I observe everything," he said coolly. Too coolly. Ava stared at him a second too long. Something warm shifted between them. Too warm. Too dangerous. So she quickly looked down at her laptop. Lucian shut his own abruptly. "We're done. That's enough for today." "But—" "Enough," he repeated. "Gather your things." She obeyed this time, rubbing her sore eyes as she closed her files and reached for her bag. Her new, impossibly expensive bag, still wrapped carefully in its dust cover. Lucian watched her pack up. Not her bag. Her movements slow. Her shoulders drooped. Her hands trembling from fatigue. He hated it. He hated how aware he was. He hated the twist in his chest every time she sighed. "Let's go," he said abruptly, standing. Ava blinked. "Go, where?" "I'm driving you home." Her eyes widened. "No!" "You don't have to do that. I can take the bus. It's nearly 10, he said. "There is no safe bus route at this hour from this district. I can call a rideshare." "You can't afford one," he said bluntly. She flinched. He regretted it instantly. Not the truth, but the sharpness. "You're exhausted," he added, softer. "You're not going alone." Ava hesitated, looking torn. Lucian's jaw tightened. "Ava, get your coat." She finally nodded. They rode the elevator down in silence, a silence thick with unspoken things neither dared to touch. Lucian's car was sleek, black, and quiet, the kind of vehicle that glided rather than drove. Ava sat stiffly in the passenger seat, clutching her bag like a small shield. Lucian glanced at her. "Relax. I am relaxed. You're sitting like you're about to be arrested. She exhaled shakily and lowered her shoulders. He didn't try to make small talk. He didn't know how. So the car hummed through the city streets in heavy quiet. But he kept glancing at her. He didn't mean to. It just happened. She was leaning against the window now, eyes half closed, lashes fluttering with exhaustion. Her hair had fallen out of its neat bun. A small crease marked her cheek where she'd rested her hand. She looked peaceful, soft, warm, human, and something inside him twisted. He hated that feeling. He hated that she made him feel anything. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. She noticed. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. He looked away from her so fast it was almost violent. "Yes. You look tense." "I'm not tense. You're gripping the wheel like it offended you." Lucian forced his fingers to unclench. Ava hid a small smile. He pretended not to notice. When the car finally turned onto her street, Lucian's posture changed. Everything in him went still. Ava immediately tensed. "Stop. This is fine. You can drop me here." Lucian didn't stop. "Ava," he said, voice low, "this neighborhood is not safe. It's temporary." "No," he said sharply. "It's dangerous." He slowed the car only because the street was narrow and littered with broken pavement. His expensive tires looked wrong here, like luxury shoes stepping into a puddle. Ava's building appeared, small, old, paint peeling, stair rails rusted. Lucian stared at it with a look she had never seen on him before. Not disgust, not pity, something darker. Anger, not at her, at the world she had been forced into. "You live here," he said quietly. She swallowed. "Yes." He didn't speak for a long moment. Too long. Then, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. "This isn't good enough for you." Ava blinked. "It's all I can afford." He inhaled slowly, his jaw tightening again. When he spoke, the softness vanished. "You will move." Ava gasped. "I what? No." "Lucian, Mr. Voss, you can't decide that?" "I don't have the money to—" "I didn't say now," he said. "I said you will." Her heart thudded painfully. "Why do you care?" she whispered. The question hung between them. Heavy, terrifying. Lucian's expression tightened, a flicker of emotion breaking through the armor. Just a flicker, enough to make her breath stop, enough to make him look away. "Because you're my employee," he said firmly. "And I don't want my employee killed walking home." Her breath hitched. That wasn't the real reason. They both knew that, but neither dared to say otherwise. He parked the car. Ava hesitated. "Thank you. For the ride." Lucian didn't answer. He was too busy staring at the building again, jaw clenched tight enough to crack. She reached for the door. "Ava." She froze. "Yes?" Lucian's voice was low, controlled, unsteady. "Text me when you're inside." Her chest tightened. "Lucian?" But he didn't look at her. He stared straight ahead, eyes cold and burning at the same time. "Just do it," he said quietly. "Please." Her heart stopped. He had said please. A word she never thought he'd use. Not with anyone. Not with her. She nodded. "Okay." She slipped out of the car and hurried into the building. Lucian watched the entrance until his phone lit up. "Ava, I'm inside. Door locked. Good night." Lucian exhaled slowly, a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He typed nothing back. He drove away in silence. But halfway down the block, he realized he was gripping the steering wheel again, tighter than before. Because something had changed. Something he didn't want. Something he wasn't ready for. Something he would deny until the last breath in his body. But something real. Something warm. Something terrifying. A spark he could no longer ignore. Chapter 13. Accidental Proximity. The next morning, Ava arrived at work earlier than usual. Not because she was excited, not because she was eager, because she couldn't stop thinking about last night. The drive, the way he saw her building, the anger in his eyes, the soft whispered please. No matter how much she tried, she couldn't file those memories anywhere. They didn't fit under cold boss behavior. They didn't fit under practicality, and they definitely didn't fit under nothing. She smoothed her blouse, took a deep breath, and knocked. Lucian's voice cut through from inside. "Enter." She stepped in. Lucian stood by the window with his jacket off. Sleeves rolled slightly up his forearms as he reviewed a file. The early morning light hit him in a way that made him look softer, not warm, just less carved from granite. He looked up. Their eyes met, and something electric flickered between them in the quiet. He blinked it away instantly. "Sit. we have work. Ava moved toward her desk, but as she passed, Lucian stepped sideways at the same time. They collided. Nothing dramatic. A brush, a small bump. But enough to make her inhale sharply and him steady her instinctively with a hand at her waist. Ava froze. Lucian froze. His hand lingered one beat too long. Just one. Then he snapped it away like he'd touched fire. "Watch where you're going," he muttered, voice lower than intended. You stepped into me," Ava whispered back, cheeks flaring hot. "I did not." "You did." His eyes narrowed with a spark. "Let's agree to be more coordinated." Ava sat, flustered. Lucian returned to his desk, jaw tight. Neither admitted the truth. It wasn't coordination. It was awareness. 30 minutes later, Ava passed him files. Their fingers brushed again. Not a graze, not a tap, a slow, warm slide. Both their breaths caught. Lucian reacted first, snapping his hand away and clearing his throat. "That's twice today. Highly inefficient." She forced a glare. "I didn't do that on purpose." "Neither did I," he said too quickly. They stared at each other, then looked away at the exact same time. At 11 a.m., Lucian called her over. "Sit," he said, pointing to a chair next to him so he could review a report with her. Ava sat. The chair was 1 inch too close. She realized only when their legs brushed lightly. She jolted. Lucian didn't flinch outwardly. But his breath hitched so quietly she almost missed it. Almost. He shifted the file toward her. She leaned in. Their shoulders touched. Ava's heart stopped. Lucian's grip on the folder tightened just slightly, the only crack in his perfect composure. He cleared his throat, voice lower. "We need to adjust this section." "Okay," she whispered. His eyes flicked to her lips for half a second he'd deny to his grave. Ava's cheeks warmed. Lucian instantly snapped his gaze back to the page, pretending nothing happened. They finished the review in silence. Tense, warm, trembling silence. Clara from HR knocked. "Lunch is here, Mr. Voss, your usual." Lucian nodded dismissively. Ava stood to grab her food, except her old shoes. Worn nearly through at the soles, slid slightly on the polished floor. She stumbled. Lucian reached her instantly. Hands around her arms. Close, too close. Their faces inches apart. Breath mingling. The world quiet. For one heart-stopping moment, Ava thought he might... No, not Lucian. No way. He caught himself first. He pulled back so sharply she nearly stumbled again. "Your shoes," he muttered. "They're terrible." "Fix them," Ava flushed. "I'm trying, okay?" He said nothing, just looked away with clenched teeth. Like the idea of her falling bothered him far more than he wanted. During lunch, Ava stepped into the hall to call her landlord again. Lucian meant to ignore it. He really did. He didn't. "I know, Mrs. Donovan." "Yes, I'm trying. Just give me until Friday, please." His entire body went still. He hated this feeling, this awareness, this whatever it was. He turned back to his desk with a controlled exhale. He didn't want to care. He absolutely cared. He threw his pen down harder than necessary. Later that afternoon, Ava brought coffee to his desk. She set it down. He reached for it. Her hand moved at the same time. Their fingers wrapped around the same cup. They froze, together, both holding the same object, both feeling the warmth of each other's skin, neither letting go. A quiet moment stretched, slow, heavy, charged. Ava's breath wavered. Lucian's jaw clenched, a muscle ticking quietly as he fought something internal. Then softly, too softly, he said, "Ava, let go." Her name on his lips sent a shiver through her. She released the cup. His hand stayed there a second too long. Ava stepped back, heart pounding. Lucian inhaled sharply and set the cup down untouched. He wasn't thirsty anymore. He was something else, and he hated it. "Ava," he said, voice cold again, "we need to set boundaries." She nodded too quickly. "Yes, definitely, boundaries. This accidental contact, totally accidental, needs to stop. Yes, it's unprofessional." He paused. His eyes softened just barely, too fast to catch unless you were looking. "I don't want you hurt," he said quietly. Ava blinked. "What?" He stiffened. "I meant you're clumsy, that's all." She glared, cheeks warm. "Wow, thank you." He dodged her gaze completely, awkward, flustered. Lucian Voss, 0. Hidden feelings, 1. Ava turned back to her desk. Lucian stared at his laptop without typing a single word, unable to focus. Today had been too much, too close, too warm. Too real, these accidental moments. They weren't accidents anymore, and both of them knew it. But both of them were far, far too scared to say anything, so they continued pretending. Badly, terribly, and undeniably. Chapter 14, The Accident. The day had already been strange. Too many accidental touches. Too many stolen glances Lucian pretended not to make. Too much electricity neither of them dared to address. By late afternoon, Ava was exhausted, not from work, but from trying not to feel anything every time Lucian stood too close. He, on the other hand, sat behind his desk, looking perfectly composed, as if he wasn't secretly watching her every time she tucked hair behind her ear. The tension simmered, quiet, hot, unspoken, until it finally snapped. "Ms. Reed," Lucian said, "bring me the quarterly projections, now." Ava jumped up, grabbed the thick folder from the filing cabinet, and hurried toward him. He stood at the whiteboard. Sleeves rolled up, tie loose, sharp, bone structure lit by late sunlight filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She hesitated behind him. "Lucian," she said softly. He froze. He heard his name differently when she said it, like a spark flicking across nerves he didn't know he had. He turned. Too fast. Ava didn't realize he was moving until he was already half-turned. She stepped forward at the same time. Their feet tangled. Her heels slipped. The folder flew from her hands. She stumbled straight into him. And Lucian caught her, an arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her against him to steady her. Ava gasped. He wasn't prepared for how warm she felt, how small, how perfectly her body fit against his. "Ava," he breathed, voice lower than he meant. She looked up. Their faces were too close, far too close. Her hand pressed against his chest for balance. His fingers curled instinctively into her waist. Their breathing synced, shallow and trembling. "Let go," she whispered. "I can't," he whispered back. He didn't even think when he said it. His eyes flicked to her lips before he could stop himself. Ava's heartbeat stuttered. "Lucian?" She whispered again, softer this time. He leaned in. Not intentionally, not consciously, just drawn. Their noses grazed. Ava's breath hitched. Lucian froze. Too late. She lifted her head in the same moment he lowered his. Their lips brushed. A barely there touch, a hesitation. Then a second, firmer contact, soft, warm, electric. A kiss. Accidental, unplanned, unavoidable. Ava's eyes widened. Lucian's breath caught against her mouth. For one heartbeat, neither moved. The world went silent. Just them. Just that lightning-fast moment. Just the truth neither dared to admit. Then Lucian jerked back like he'd been burned. Ava stumbled away, hand covering her lips, face flushed with shock. They stared at each other. Silence thicker than ever. What just, Ava stammered. "That," Lucian said, voice tight and strained, "was an accident." Her heart hammered. Yes, an accident. A clumsy accident. Very clumsy. His jaw flexed. It must not happen again. No, never. They nodded too many times. Both lying. Both shaken. Both replaying the moment in their minds. Ava turned away quickly, cheeks burning, hands trembling as she picked up the fallen papers. Lucian pressed a hand to the edge of his desk, knuckles white. He wasn't angry. He wasn't confused. He was terrified. Because in the brief second their lips touched, he didn't feel cold. He didn't feel numb. He didn't feel empty. He felt alive. And that was the most dangerous feeling of all. Chapter 15, The Aftershock. Ava barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, the kiss replayed. Soft, sudden, electric. The way his breath had caught. The way his hand tightened on her waist. The way he froze afterward, eyes dark and unreadable. She kept telling herself it didn't mean anything. It was an accident. They both agreed. But the way her lips tingled said otherwise, and the way her heart pounded every time she remembered his whisper, "I can't," was impossible to ignore. By the time morning came, she had rehearsed 1,000 ways to act normal. None of them felt convincing. Ava stepped in with her usual soft knock. Lucian sat at his desk, but he wasn't typing. He wasn't reading. He was staring straight ahead, jaw clenched, like he'd been frozen there for 20 minutes. When she spoke, he moved, too quickly. "Good morning," she said quietly. Lucian's eyes flicked to her, then away, then back. He looked almost startled. Not that he would admit that. "Sit," he said brusquely. Ava obeyed, keeping her eyes glued to her tablet so she wouldn't accidentally meet his. Silence stretched between them, thick, heavy. tense. Every tiny sound felt amplified. Her breath, his shifting, the click of her pen. Finally, Lucian spoke. Yesterday was unprofessional. Ava nodded quickly. Yes, completely. It cannot happen again. Of course. He hesitated. Then, it won't happen again. Ava nodded again, smaller this time. Right. Lucian opened his laptop. He stared at the blank email screen. Typed nothing. His fingers hovered, stiff, restless, shaking imperceptibly. Ava glanced up. He immediately looked away. By 11 a.m., it was obvious they were both avoiding each other like they were dangerous. Ava kept her distance. Lucian kept his. If she walked left, he turned right. If she stood, he sat. If she approached the desk, he suddenly found an excuse to go to the window. At one point, she reached for a pen near him, and he stepped back so sharply she nearly laughed. It was ridiculous, but the tension was real. Every time their eyes accidentally met, the memory of their lips brushing flashed. Between them, like a spark, they both pretended not to feel. Just before lunch, Clara from HR stepped into the office. Mr. Voss, I have the updated... She paused. Her eyes flicked between Lucian, stiff, rigid, avoiding eye contact, and Ava, nervous, flustered, staring at the floor. Clara's brow raised. Everything. All right in here? Yes, they said at the same time. Too quickly. Too loudly. Clara's eyes narrowed. Lucian cleared his throat. Ms. Reed, fetch the... Already on it, Ava said, practically sprinting out the door. Clara turned to Lucian slowly, arms folding. Should I be concerned about anything? She asked. No. You sure? Yes. She stared at him another moment. He stared back, cold and impassive. Clara exhaled. Fine, but whatever this is, fix it. Lucian didn't respond. He didn't know how. When Ava returned, Lucian didn't look up. Place it on the desk, he said. She did, carefully, quickly, but her hand trembled. The report slipped just slightly. Lucian reached out at the same time. Their fingers brushed. Both froze. Her breath caught. His jaw tightened. The air thickened instantly. Electric, warm, unwanted. Ava pulled back like she'd touched a live wire. Lucian inhaled sharply, turning away. This tension, he said, voice low and strained, is compromising productivity. Ava looked down. I know. We need to... Correct it. She swallowed. How? He didn't answer immediately. Because he didn't know. Because everything he normally did, distance, coldness, control, wasn't working. Because the moment he'd kissed her, or rather, the moment their lips had collided, something inside him had shifted. He hated that. He hated the lack of control. He hated that when she walked into a room now, he felt it. Ava, he said finally. She looked up. Big mistake. Their eyes locked, and everything they weren't saying filled the space between them. Lucian's voice softened without permission. Ava, I need you to... A knock on the door shattered the moment. They both jumped. Lucian straightened instantly, mask snapping back into place. Enter. An assistant poked her head in. Mr. Voss, your 1 p.m. is early. Fine, he said. The assistant left. Ava stepped back. We should... Get back to work. Yes, he said quietly. Work. But he didn't move. Neither did she. They stood there in mute, burning tension until Ava forced herself to break it. She slipped behind her desk, cheeks hot, fingers trembling. Lucian sat in his chair, staring at nothing. Throughout the rest of the day, Lucian was quieter. Less cold, more internal, like he was fighting something he couldn't name. When Ava gathered her things to leave, she paused in the doorway. Good night, Mr. Voss. He looked up just briefly. Good night, Ava. Her name sounded different on his tongue. Warm, unintended. She left with her heart pounding. Lucian watched the door close. His expression unreadable, but his knuckles white on the edge of his desk. Because today he realized something terrifying. He didn't want the kiss to happen again, but he wanted it more than he wanted anything in a long, long time. And he had no idea what to do about that. Chapter 16. The night they didn't mean to have. It happened on a Thursday. A long, brutal Thursday, a day that tested every cracked edge of both their restraint. The office emptied hours ago, but Lucian and Ava were still there. One reviewing a merger, one organizing the mountain of files he kept handing her without realizing. She was slowly unraveling. By midnight, the building was silent. The lights dimmed automatically. Only the glow from Lucian's desk lamp lit the room, throwing shadows across the polished floor. Ava rubbed her eyes. We should go home. Lucian didn't look up. We're not finished. Lucian? He froze when she said his name. Her voice soft, raw, tired. The last line of control inside him strained. You need sleep, she whispered. And so do I. He looked at her for the first time in hours. Really looked, her hair falling loose, her posture slumped, a crease from her notebook pressed into her cheek, eyes tired and shining with exhaustion. Something inside him cracked. He stood abruptly. We're leaving. Ava blinked. Oh, okay. They left together, down the empty elevator, through the dark lobby into the quiet night. Neither spoke. Neither trusted their voice. His driver wasn't there. Lucian had dismissed him hours earlier, planning to work until dawn. So they walked, just a block, just far enough to realize they were the only two people left in the entire street, just close enough for the tension to finally combust. It started when Ava stumbled. Her ankle twisted gently. She tried to catch herself. Lucian caught her instead, his hands on her waist, her fingers gripping his shirt, their faces inches apart. Ava, he breathed. A warning, a plea, a confession he wasn't ready to make. She swallowed hard. Lucian, we can't. I know, he whispered. But he didn't let her go. She should have stepped back. He should have released her. Neither did. The street light above them flickered in the gentle wind, casting soft gold across her face, and Lucian stared like he'd never seen her before. Ava felt her breath catch. He inched closer. Not intentional. Not planned. Just drawn. Her voice trembled. We shouldn't. He swallowed. I'm aware. But he still didn't move. Then she whispered the one thing that broke him completely. Then why won't you let go? His fingers curled gently into her waist. I can't. There it was. The truth neither wanted. The truth he hated. The truth she felt. And in the charged silence that followed, they both stepped forward at the same time. Closing distance. Closing caution. Closing sense. He kissed her. Soft at first. Careful. Searching. And when she kissed him back, everything snapped. The world blurred. The restraint vanished. The denial dissolved. And nothing about it was an accident anymore. They didn't mean for it to happen. But it happened, somewhere between his quiet, desperate kisses and her hands trembling against his jaw. Somewhere between the way she whispered his name and the way he breathed, hers like a secret. Somewhere between the tension they'd buried for weeks and the exhaustion that tore down the last of their walls. They ended up at his penthouse. Neither remembered the walk. Neither remembered the elevator ride. They only remembered each other. The warmth, the closeness, the need neither of them could deny anymore. And then, everything faded, everything blurred, everything ignited. A night they didn't plan, a night they shouldn't have wanted, a night neither would ever forget. The morning after, Ava woke first. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, painting Lucian's bedroom in gold. She froze. Lucian's sheets, Lucian's pillows, Lucian's arm, heavy and warm around her waist. Oh, God. Her breath hitched. Her heart pounded. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't imagination. This happened. She carefully turned her head. Lucian Voss, the cold, untouchable CEO, lay beside her. Asleep, hair slightly messy, jaw relaxed, breathing deep and soft in a way she'd never seen. He looked almost human, beautiful, breakable, real. A wave of panic and longing hit her at the same time. And as she was trying to untangle herself from his arm, he shifted and woke. His eyes opened slowly, saw her, and in an instant, every emotion drained from his face. Not because he didn't feel, because he felt too much. Ava, he said, voice low, controlled, but trembling at the edges. She swallowed hard. Lucian, we didn't mean. This stays between us. His voice cut through the air like a blade. Her breath caught. What? Lucian sat up, jaw clenched, shielding whatever emotion flickered behind his eyes. No one can know, he said firmly. Not the office. Not HR, not anyone. Ava's throat tightened. Because you regret it? He froze. A full second. 2, 3, then. No, he whispered, raw, honest, terrified. Ava's breath hitched. But it changes nothing, he added quickly, walls snapping up. It must change nothing. Her heart twisted painfully. Lucian? This was a mistake, he said sharply. Her chest ached, but then he looked at her. Really looked, and for one unguarded heartbeat, she saw everything he was trying to hide. Fear, need, desire, denial. He tore his gaze away. Get dressed. We have work. Ava swallowed the lump in her throat and nodded slowly. She slipped out of bed. He didn't watch, but his fists were clenched so tightly at his sides, his knuckles were white. They both knew the truth. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't nothing. It wasn't something they could bury, but Lucian would try, and it would hurt, and it would change everything. Chapter 17, Pretending Nothing Happened. Ava spent more time staring at her reflection that morning than she liked to admit. Her lips still felt different. Her skin still felt warm. Her chest still tightened every time she remembered. His hand pulling her closer, his mouth brushing hers, his voice, rough and unguarded, whispering her name in the dark. She closed her eyes and pressed a trembling hand to her forehead. Stop thinking about it, she whispered to herself. This changes nothing, but it changed everything. She got dressed quietly, folded her clothes, gathered her courage, and walked out of Lucian's bedroom. He was already in the kitchen, fully dressed, crisp suit, perfect tie, hair immaculate, but he was standing too straight, shoulders too rigid, jaw clenched too tightly, as if he'd rebuilt his entire armor in under 10 minutes. Ava cleared her throat gently. Lucian looked up and froze, not visibly, but she could feel it, a stillness in the air, a slight widening of his eyes before he forced them back into neutrality. His gaze swept over her once. Quick, sharp, terrified. He hit it instantly. Breakfast is on the counter, he said flatly. Ava blinked. Breakfast? She looked. Toast, eggs, fruit, coffee. He had made her breakfast. Lucian Voss, who didn't cook for himself, had made her breakfast. Thank you, she said softly. It's nothing. Too fast. Too defensive. Ava moved toward the food. He stepped aside abruptly, as if any accidental contact might set him on fire. She loaded her plate carefully, avoiding his eyes. They ate in silence. But it wasn't comfortable silence. It was heavy, charged, filled with everything they weren't saying. Every time her fork scraped the plate, he flinched slightly. Every time he shifted, she looked up instinctively. Their eyes almost met twice. Both looked away instantly. The drive to work was worse. She sat in the passenger seat, hands clasped in her lap, staring out the window. Lucian gripped the steering wheel, not like yesterday, but tighter. White-knuckled. He kept his eyes glued to the road. Ava kept her breath steady. Halfway there, she whispered, Lucian. He inhaled sharply but didn't look at her. We are not discussing last night. I wasn't. Yes, you were. Ava bit her lip. We can't just pretend. We can, he said. We will. Lucian, ignoring it, won't make it go away. His jaw flexed. It must. She swallowed. Does that mean you regret it? He braked too hard at a red light. Ava jolted forward. Lucian! He kept his eyes forward, jaw tight, breathing uneven. No, he whispered. Then louder, harsher, but it can't happen again. Her chest ached. Because I'm your employee. His grip tightened. Because you deserve better than this. Ava's breath stilled. He looked away immediately, as if the honesty burned him. Enough, he said. I can't. He cut himself off. The light turned green. He drove in silence again. The moment they stepped into the lobby of Voss Tower, Lucian flipped a switch. Ava watched it happen, like watching a mask slide back into place. His back straightened. His face hardened. His cold, sharp CEO expression returned in full force, and the man from last night disappeared. He walked ahead of her without looking back once. Ava followed slowly, her heart heavy, her mind spinning. To everyone else, he was normal, untouched, perfectly controlled. But she knew too much now. She knew how warm he was, how his voice sounded when he whispered her name, how he looked at her in the dark. And she knew he was running from that, from her, from himself, from reality. On the 29th floor, Ava set her bag down and opened her laptop. Lucian sat behind his desk, already typing furiously. His eyes stayed glued to the screen. He didn't greet her, didn't look at her. He was pretending she didn't exist. It hurt far more than she expected. A few minutes passed. Then, Ava. She stiffened. Yes, Mr. Voss. You'll accompany me to the 11 a.m. board meeting. Her brows knit. Me? You're my assistant, he said sharply. Act like it. Right. He didn't look at her. He didn't see how she swallowed hard, trying to keep her emotions buried. She typed. He typed. Silence. Crushing silence. Then, her laptop died. Just shut off completely. What? She whispered, tapping the screen. No, not now. Lucian finally looked up. What's wrong? My laptop just died. It's old, and I think the charger port is broken. His eyes sharpened. You're behind on pay? Her cheeks flushed. Yes. He watched her too closely. Then without hesitation he stood, walked to the storage room, and returned with a brand new, sleek laptop still in its box. Use this. Ava's eyes widened. Lucian, Mr. Voss, I can't accept that. Take it. I can't, it's too much. I said take it. Ava hesitated, breath trembling. Because you feel guilty about last night? Lucian froze. Absolutely froze. His eyes locked onto hers, sharp, dark, full of something he refused to name. Ava, he said slowly, if you ever say something like that in this office again. What? She whispered. You'll fire me? He swallowed. Hard. No, he said. Too honest. Too raw. But then he shut down again. You will use the laptop, he said. Because I need you functional. Nothing more. Her heart twisted. She nodded carefully. The tension between them grew so thick it was nearly suffocating. At noon, they reached for the same pen on the desk. Their fingers brushed. Ava yanked her hand back. Lucian jerked like he'd been electrocuted. They both stared at the pen, then at each other, then away. Around 3 p.m., Ava accidentally dropped a folder. Papers scattered across the floor. She knelt to gather them. Lucian pushed back his chair to help. A reflex. Their heads collided gently. Ava gasped. Ow! Lucian's hand flew to her cheek to steady her. Did I hurt you? She looked up. He froze. Their faces inches apart. Close. Too close. Dangerously close. Ava swallowed. Lucian? His breath hitched. His hand on her cheek softened instinctively. Thumb brushing her skin in a way he absolutely did not intend. Neither of them moved. Neither dared. Then Lucian abruptly stood. Too fast. Too tense. This, he said hoarsely, cannot continue. Ava rose slowly. I know. He looked at her. Really looked, like he was trying to memorize her and erase her at the same time. This is a disaster, he whispered. Ava's voice cracked. Then what are we supposed to do? Lucian clenched his fists. Long silence. Then, in the softest voice she'd ever heard from him, I don't know. Her heart twisted painfully. Neither of them had any answers. Only fear, desire, confusion, and a secret night binding them together in ways they couldn't undo. Lucian turned away. Ava watched his shoulders rise and fall as he struggled to breathe evenly. They both knew. This was only the beginning of the chaos, and pretending nothing happened was becoming impossible. Chapter 18. The beginning of the distance. 3 weeks later. 3 weeks. 3 long, impossibly confusing weeks since that night. Since the kiss. Since the closeness. Since the moment Ava woke in Lucian's bed and everything cracked inside both of them. Nothing happened again. Not physically, but emotionally, everything was different. Lucian was different. He didn't touch her. He didn't flirt. He didn't slip again. But he watched her. Quietly, constantly, as if he was waiting for something he didn't understand. Ava tried to pretend everything was normal. But her heart refused to listen, and her body, that was becoming confusing too. The next Voss International Gala was impossibly grand, bigger than the last, glowing with gold and crystal and 1,000 influential faces. Ava wore the same borrowed dress. Her neighbor insisted she take it again, but this time, it hung looser on her. She'd been too nauseous to eat much that week. She assumed it was stress. Lucian noticed. He noticed everything. He stood beside her at the event. Posture straight, expression unreadable, but eyes flicking to her every few minutes. You're pale, he said quietly. Ava forced a smile. It's hot in here. He didn't believe her. Lucian Voss never believed anything without evidence. And right now, Ava was sweating, holding her stomach, swallowing hard. Ava, he said again, voice lower. You don't look well. I'm fine. She wasn't. She felt dizzy, her head spinning. And then, nausea clawed up her throat, sharp and sudden. She swayed. Lucian caught her immediately, one hand at her waist, one at her back, holding her steady against his chest. Ava, he said sharply, you're unwell. We're leaving. No, I can't. I'm okay. He didn't listen. He placed a firm hand on her lower back and guided her outside, ignoring every staring guest, every whisper. He didn't care, not when she was shaking in his arms. Outside in the cool night air, Ava leaned against a pillar, breathing deeply. "I just need a minute," she whispered. Lucian stood in front of her, jaw tight, eyes scanning her like he could physically fix whatever was wrong. "You're going home," he said. "Lucian, I don't need—" "I'm not asking." Ava couldn't argue, not with the way her stomach churned, not with the dizziness clouding her vision. He escorted her to his car, opened the door, and watched her until she was safely inside. His jaw twitched the entire ride home. When they reached her building, he didn't let her leave until she promised to text him once she got into her apartment. She did, and he stared at his phone long after she did, jaw clenching. Something was wrong, and the idea of something happening to her made something inside him snap. The next morning, Ava woke up nauseous. Again. She barely made it to the bathroom before getting sick. Her hands shook as she gripped the sink. She felt terrible. She felt weak. She felt scared. She dragged herself to work anyway, because she had no choice. Rent. Bills. Life. She arrived pale, tired, frail. Lucian's eyes widened the second he saw her. "Ava," he said, voice dropping into something dangerously close to panic. "You're worse." "I'm just tired." "Sit," he demanded. She sat. Lucian crouched in front of her, the CEO of the company, kneeling without caring how it looked. "You're going to the doctor." Ava shook her head. "I don't have the money." "I'll pay." Her breath caught. "Lucian, I'm not negotiating." His voice shook, just slightly. "I'm not losing—" He stopped himself. Ava stared at him. He exhaled sharply. "You're going, today." Her eyes softened behind tired lashes. "Okay." He booked the appointment himself. He made her take his car. He ordered her not to return to work afterward. Ava didn't argue. She didn't have the strength. The clinic smelled like disinfectant and peppermint. Ava sat in the room, stomach twisting with nerves more than nausea. The doctor asked gentle questions, took tests, and then came back with a soft, warm smile. "Ava," she said quietly, "you're pregnant." Ava froze. Pregnant. The room spun. Her hand went to her stomach in disbelief. Pregnant. Lucian's face flashed in her mind. His arms, his voice, his kiss. That night, her breath trembled. She wasn't angry. She wasn't sad. She wasn't even shocked. She was terrified. Terrified because she didn't know how to tell him. Terrified because she didn't know if he'd want this. Terrified because she barely had enough money for rent. Terrified because she didn't know what he would do. Her hands shook violently. "Ava?" the doctor asked gently. "Do you have someone who can support you?" Ava whispered the truth she didn't want to admit. I don't know." When Ava returned to the office to gather her bag, she heard voices just around the corner near the break room. 2 co-workers. She froze behind the wall. "No, Lucian's family already has someone lined up for him," one woman whispered. "Of course," the other replied. "He'll marry someone powerful, classy, rich, someone suitable." They giggled. "Well, it's not like he'd ever actually be with someone like his assistant." The first said. Ava stopped breathing. "She's cute," the second said. "But she's broke. From a bad neighborhood. Not his type, and not his world." "And Lucian Voss?" A laugh. "He'll marry a woman with money, influence, prestige, a merger wife." Ava's throat closed. Her hand trembled on the wall. She felt sick. Not from pregnancy, from heartbreak, because deep down she feared they were right. Lucian would marry someone who matched him, not someone who lived paycheck to paycheck, not someone who didn't have a penny to save herself, and definitely not someone carrying his child. Ava covered her mouth as tears stung her eyes. She backed away quietly, heart breaking with each step. Then she turned and walked into the office. She took her bag, her coat, her things from her drawer. Then she placed her resignation envelope, a letter she had written months ago, but never used, on Lucian's desk. Just her name, just her handwriting. She didn't dare stay long enough for him to return. She didn't dare look back. She whispered to the empty room, "I'm sorry." And she walked out. Ava didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing. Lucian could never know. Not from her. Not now. Not ever. Chapter 19. The Envelope. Lucian returned to the 29th floor expecting a normal afternoon. Annoyingly empty room, cold coffee, documents waiting, and Ava sitting at her desk, ready to argue about something trivial just to annoy him. Except her chair was empty. Her desk was clean. Her bag wasn't there. Her coat wasn't draped over the backrest. Something in his chest tightened instantly. A sharp, unfamiliar pull. "Ava," he called. Silence. He tried again, louder. "Ava." Nothing. His jaw locked. He hated the way the silence made his skin prickle. He stepped into his office and stopped dead. There, on the center of his immaculate desk, lay an envelope. Plain, white, unopened. His name wasn't on it, but hers was. Ava Reed. Lucian stared at it. A strange, sinking feeling pressed into his sternum. He walked toward it, slow, careful. He didn't sit. He didn't breathe. He just opened the envelope and pulled out a single sheet of paper. His eyes scanned it once. His heart stopped. "Dear Mr. Voss, I resign, effective immediately. Thank you for the opportunity. Ava Reed." The paper slipped from his fingers. It fluttered to the floor like a falling feather. Lucian didn't move. For a full 10 seconds he didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't think. Then, his chest erupted. Anger, fear, confusion, something else he refused to name. He grabbed the edge of the desk so violently his knuckles turned white. "No," he whispered. He didn't mean for it to sound broken, but it did. Lucian tore out of his office, startling the interns on the floor. "Where is she?" he demanded. One intern flinched. Who, sir?" "Ava Reed," he snapped. "She was here this morning." The intern swallowed. "She left with her bag." She looked upset. Lucian didn't wait. He stormed into the elevator, hitting the ground floor button so hard the panel beeped warningly. The elevator doors closed. Lucian's reflection stared back at him, cold, angry, but beneath it, terrified. He whispered under his breath, "What did you do, Ava?" His chest tightened. This wasn't like her. She didn't leave without a word. She didn't walk away from responsibility. She didn't disappear. Something was wrong. And for the first time in his life, Lucian Voss felt fear. Not for himself, for her. He rushed to the receptionist. "Did you see my assistant leave?" The woman blinked rapidly. "Mr. Voss," she looked pale, really pale. She seemed sick. His pulse spiked. He left without another word, walking so fast people jumped out of his way. He stepped outside the building and froze. It was raining. Hard. Ava didn't have an umbrella. She didn't have a car. She was sick. And she walked out into the rain. His jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Lucian pulled out his phone, calling her. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail. He tried again, and again, and again. Voicemail, voicemail, voicemail. His heartbeat thundered painfully. "Ava," he whispered through gritted teeth. "Answer the damn phone." She didn't. Lucian spotted his driver waiting under the building awning. "Take me to her apartment," he ordered. The driver blinked. "Yes, sir, but is everything all right?" "No." Lucian's voice cracked on the word. That was how the driver knew not to ask again. Lucian sat in the back seat, chest rising and falling too quickly. He tried to rationalize. She was overwhelmed. She was emotional. She was sick. She needed space. She wasn't leaving him. She couldn't be. But the resignation letter burned in his pocket. His grip on the paper was so tight the edges crumpled. He stared out the window, hands shaking. He had never been nervous, never panicked, never lost control of a single thing in his life. Until the night she whispered his name in his bed, until the morning she walked away without looking back. When the car reached her building, Lucian stepped out into the rain without hesitation. He didn't care that it soaked his suit. He didn't care that people stared. He didn't care about anything except the growing fear tearing at him. He jogged up the cracked steps and banged on her door. "Ava!" Silence. "Ava, open the door!" He knocked again, louder. Nothing. He tried the handle. Locked. He pressed his forehead against the door, breathing hard. "Ava," he whispered, "please." The word trembled. He didn't care. He didn't care how it sounded. He didn't care if it exposed everything he was trying to bury. He just needed her to answer. But she didn't. Lucian stepped back, his entire body shaking with fury and fear and something deeper he hadn't allowed himself to name. He looked at the door like it had personally betrayed him. He whispered again. This time, barely audible. "Ava, don't leave me." The full weight of her absence hit him like a punch to the ribs. She was gone. She left him. She walked out of his life without a word. And the ache in his chest was not anger. It was something far, far worse. Something he had denied every step of the way. Something he could no longer escape. Because for the first time in Lucian Voss's life, he wanted someone. He needed someone. And she was slipping away. He clenched his jaw. "No," he whispered. "Not again. Not her. Not like this. Ava, you're not leaving," he said with rising determination. "I won't let you." He turned back toward the car, soaking wet, eyes blazing with a dangerous mix of fear and devotion. He would find her. He would drag the truth out of her. He would fix this. Because he wasn't just losing an assistant. He was losing the only person who ever made him feel alive. And that was something Lucian Voss would burn down the world to prevent. Chapter 20. The Empty Office. Lucian breaks. For 2 days, Lucian didn't leave the office. Not once. He barely slept, barely ate, barely spoke. He worked with a fury everyone felt, but no one dared comment on. Meetings were brutal. Phone calls were short and vicious. He shredded a pen in his hand when someone mentioned Ava's name by accident. Every time he passed her empty desk, his jaw locked so hard the muscle jumped. Every time he reached for a file, she would have already organized. Something in his chest twisted painfully. He didn't say it out loud, but the whole building knew. Lucian Voss was falling apart, and the only person who used to soften his edges was gone. He tried to bury himself in work, the only thing he had left to control. But every document, every email, every polished surface reflected her absence back at him. His assistant's chair, her unread messages folder, her mug still in the sink, the tiny note she left on his schedule last week. "Don't forget to eat." Lucian slammed the drawer shut so hard the wood cracked. He was furious. At her, at himself, at everything. How dare she disappear? How dare she walk out without letting him fix whatever he broke? How dare she take that warm heartbeat out of his office and leave him drowning in empty silence? He tried calling her. Every day. No answer. He tried tracking her address. She'd moved out. He tried asking HR. They didn't know. And every hour she stayed gone, something inside him darkened. Until finally, he said the words he didn't mean. "Fine. She wants to leave? Let her." His voice cracked. He pretended it didn't. Ava left the city in a blur of tears and exhaustion. She bought the cheapest bus ticket she could find, a long, bumpy 7-hour ride into the countryside, and curled against the window, one hand resting protectively on her still flat stomach. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she had to get away. Away from the building that reminded her of him. Away from the whispers in the office hallways. Away from the pain of loving someone she could never have. Away from a future where he'd marry perfection while her baby grew in her arms. The bus rattled through farmland, small towns, stretches of golden grass and quiet skies. And eventually she arrived in a place that felt like a different world. Ridge Hollow. Small, quiet. Rolling green hills, weathered cottages. A single main street with a bakery, a feed store, and a tiny clinic. So peaceful she wanted to cry. Ava dragged her suitcase to a notice board near the general store. There were handwritten notes pinned up. Farm help needed. Room for rent. Carpentry lessons. Elderly companionship wanted. One caught her eye. House help needed. Light chores, flexible hours. Room provided. Friendly home. Mrs. Elora Whitaker. It felt like fate. Elora Whitaker lived on a quiet spread of land just outside town. Her farmhouse was bright yellow with flower boxes under every window and a wind chime that sang every time a breeze touched it. She answered the door leaning on a polished wooden cane. Silver hair pinned behind her head, kind eyes twinkling like she'd been waiting for Ava all along. "Dear heavens," she said softly. "You look like you've walked through a storm." Ava's throat tightened. "I kind of have." Elora smiled gently. "Come in, sweetheart. Tell me everything." Ava stepped inside. She didn't tell everything. Not Lucian, not the one night, not the baby. But she told enough. She talked about needing work, a place to stay, a quiet life for a while. Elora listened, nodding warm and wise. "I need a maid," she said. "Light cleaning. Cooking, if you can. Company, definitely." Ava nodded quickly. "I can do all of that." Elora smiled. "Good. Then you'll stay here. Room's upstairs." Ava blinked. "Just like that?" "Just like that," Elora said. "Some people arrive in our lives right on time." "I've been alone too long." Ava felt her chest loosen for the first time in months. She whispered, "Thank you." Elora patted her hand. "You can tell me the rest when you're ready." Ava looked away. She didn't know if she'd ever be ready. 2 months passed quietly in the countryside. Ava worked gently in the house, cleaning, cooking, planting herbs with Elora, feeding chickens and brushing the horse named Poppy. And as the weeks passed, Ava's stomach began to grow. Elora noticed first. She always noticed everything. "You're expecting," she said softly one evening as they shelled peas by the window. Ava froze. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. Elora pulled her into a gentle embrace. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so glad you're not alone in this," Ava cried into her shoulder. Not because she was scared, because she finally felt safe. 5 years later, the farmhouse echoed with laughter. Ava chopped vegetables while Elora told dramatic stories at the kitchen table. Poppy grazed outside. The chickens clucked loudly at the back door, and a little girl, wide-eyed, curly-haired, with striking gray eyes just like her father, ran around with a wooden toy horse in her hands. "Mommy, look! Poppy is fast!" Ava scooped her daughter into her arms, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Careful, Lily, no running near the stove." Lily giggled. "Okay, Mommy." Ava brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face. Her little miracle, her whole world, her secret. No city noise, no pressure, no Lucian. Not anymore. Ava told herself she didn't miss him. She told herself her life was peaceful now. She told herself she had everything she needed. And most days she could even believe it. But sometimes, late at night, when Lily was asleep and the house grew quiet, Ava would find her hand drifting to her heart, where his memory still lived, stubborn and unbroken, where she tried so hard to bury it, where she still whispered, "You'll never know her. You'll never know you have a daughter." And that's how it has to be. But fate was not done with their story. Not even close. Chapter 21. The woman he lost. The woman who raised him. Lucian Voss had changed. 5 years had carved sharp edges into him. He was still powerful, still feared, still brilliant, but colder, quieter, hollow in ways he never explained. His employees whispered that he rarely smiled now, that he buried himself in work more than ever, that no assistant lasted more than a month. They whispered about the missing woman who used to soften his expression, without even trying. But Lucian never spoke her name. Not once. He told himself she was gone. He told himself he didn't deserve answers. He told himself he didn't look for her anymore. He was lying. One morning his personal phone buzzed. He almost didn't answer, until he saw the name. Elora Whitaker, the only person in the world he ever allowed to see him vulnerable. The aunt who cared for him when his parents didn't. The one who taught him kindness he later buried. The one whose farmhouse always felt like the only home he'd ever known. "Aunt Elora?" He answered immediately. Her voice was soft but bright. "Lucian, darling, it's been too long." His chest tightened. "Are you all right?" "Oh, I'm fine. Just old." A chuckle. "I'd like you to visit, dear. Only for the weekend." Lucian paused. He had meetings, contracts, deadlines, things he used to use as walls. But for Elora, he always made room. "I'll come today," he said. She smiled through the phone. "Good, I cooked too much again. And there's someone I'd like you to meet." "Someone? Oh, don't worry, you'll see." Lucian frowned. He didn't like surprises, but he packed a bag and left the city before he could talk himself out of it. Ridge Hollow. When Lucian's car pulled up the long dirt driveway, memories hit him like a blow. The wind chime he used to tug as a boy, the yellow farmhouse with the peeling paint, the smell of lavender from the garden. It was the only place his heart ever felt quiet. Elora stepped onto the porch with her cane, smiling wide. He went to her immediately, held her in a rare embrace, felt something in him ease just slightly. "You look tired," she said. "I slept," he lied. She pinched his cheek lightly. "You still lie badly." Lucian almost smiled. Almost. He carried her bags inside. Helped with the groceries, she insisted she could lift alone, and let her talk his ear off about chickens and weather and the bakery. Girl who wanted to marry the butcher's son. It felt normal, until Elora said, "My maid will be home soon. I'd like you to meet her." Lucian stiffened. "A maid? Why do you need a maid?" "I'm old, Lucian, and she's been wonderful, hard-working, sweet, a blessing." He nodded mechanically. "Her name is Ava." Lucian froze. Completely. Absolutely. His heart slammed against his ribs. Ava, 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 Ava. His Ava. His one night, his heartbreak, his 5 years of ache. His blood roared in his ears. He inhaled sharply. "What did you say?" Elora smiled warmly. "Ava Reed." Lovely young woman. The best thing that ever happened to me. Lucian's vision blurred. It couldn't be. It couldn't. He couldn't breathe. Elora didn't notice. She'd already turned toward the front window. Oh, speak of the angel. She's here. Lucian spun. The front gate creaked open. A woman stepped through carrying a basket of vegetables. Her hair longer now, pulled into a loose braid. Her figure softer, curved by motherhood. Her face older, gentler, even more beautiful. And beside her, a little girl, 5 years old, light hair in curls, soft cheeks, a tiny dress patterned with flowers, holding Ava's hand with a giggle. The little girl looked up at her mother. "Mommy, look what I found!" But Lucian didn't hear the child's voice. His world had shrunk to one impossible sight. Ava Reed, alive, safe, standing only a few yards away, and she was holding a child with Lucian's breath caught. Gray eyes. His gray eyes. The little girl looked just like him. Same eyes, same stubborn chin, same expression when she tilted her head curiously. Lucian's heart stopped. He stepped back like he'd been struck. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Elora smiled brightly. "Ava, Lily, come say hello." Ava looked up. Her eyes met Lucian's, and she froze. The basket slipped from her hands. Carrots rolled across the dirt. She paled instantly. "Lucian!" His name fell from her lips like a ghost resurrected. Lucian stared at her, at the child, at their joined hands. His chest rose, then fell in a violent, shuddering breath. 5 years of pain crashed into him all at once. 5 years of searching. 5 years of wondering. 5 years of quiet torment. And then, his voice barely a whisper. "Is she mine?" Ava's face crumpled. Lily hid behind her mother's leg, shy and startled. Ava shook her head instinctively. Not in denial, in fear. Elora looked between them, stunned. "Lucian, you know each other?" His hands shook. "Ava, answer me." Ava hugged Lily protectively to her side and whispered the truth she never wanted him to hear. "Yes, she's yours." Lucian's world shattered, right there, on the front porch. Everything he thought he'd lost, everything he'd buried, everything he'd tried to live without, stood in front of him, and he had no idea whether to collapse or explode. Chapter 22, Stay. Ava couldn't breathe. Not when Lucian was standing in front of her. Not when Elora looked between them with confusion and dawning realization. Not when Lily clung to her leg, peeking curiously at the stranger with familiar gray eyes. Ava stepped backward instinctively, her grip tightening around her daughter's hand. I should go." "No." Lucian's voice cut through the air like thunder. Ava flinched. Elora frowned. "Ava Reed, don't you dare walk away." Ava's throat tightened. "Elora, please." "No," the elderly woman repeated, planting her cane firmly against the ground. "You're not moving an inch until you explain." Ava's eyes filled with tears. "I can't do this." Lucian stepped forward, eyes burning. "You can, and you will." Ava shook her head, voice trembling. "Lucian, I'm not doing this in front of Lily." Elora gasped softly. "Lily! Oh, heavens!" She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. "She's his, isn't she?" Ava squeezed her eyes shut, unable to deny it. Lucian didn't breathe. Not until Ava whispered, "Yes." Elora's face lit with unexpected joy. "Oh, my sweet stars, Lucian!" She turned to him and smacked his arm lightly. "You fool! You have a daughter!" Lucian's chest rose sharply. His voice cracked when he spoke, the most broken it had ever sounded. "I have a daughter?" Ava swallowed hard and nodded. Lily peeked out again, curious, her small voice barely above a whisper. "Mommy, who is that man?" Ava knelt down and brushed a curl from her daughter's cheek. "He's someone Mommy used to know." Lucian's jaw clenched. "Used to." That hurt more than any blow. Ava grabbed Lily's hand, trying to guide her toward the side gate. "Please," she whispered, voice trembling. "Let me go." "No," Lucian said again, stepping in front of the exit. He didn't touch her. He didn't raise his voice. But the way he blocked the path made Ava freeze. "You're not running," he said quietly. "Not this time." Ava's heart twisted painfully. "Elora, tell him to move." But Elora, sweet, gentle Elora, leaned on her cane and shook her head. "No, dear. Not until you explain why you ran. Not until Lucian hears the truth." Ava's chin trembled. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand plenty," Elora said firmly. "You were scared. You were heartbroken. And you made the best choice you could. But now he's here. And you both deserve answers." Ava looked away, blinking hard. Lucian stepped closer, voice low and shaking. Why didn't you tell me? She couldn't look at him. Ava, he whispered. Why didn't you let me be there for her? Her breath broke. You were meant to marry someone else, she said softly. Someone richer, someone good for your career. Everyone said so. Lucian's eyes hardened. Everyone? Ava nodded. Co-workers, people at the gala. They said you'd never want someone like me. Elora gasped in outrage. Lucian took a shaky step toward Ava. And you believed them? Her voice cracked. What was I supposed to think? That I deserved the truth, he snapped, emotion rising fast. That I deserved to know my child, our child, existed. Ava looked down. I was scared, Lucian. He pressed a hand to his forehead, overwhelmed. I spent years looking for you, he said quietly. I didn't date. I didn't move on. I didn't want anyone else. Lucian's chest rose sharply. His voice cracked when he spoke, the most broken it had ever sounded. I have a daughter? Ava swallowed hard and nodded. Lily peeked out again, curious. Her small voice barely above a whisper. Mommy, who is that man? Ava knelt down and brushed a curl from her daughter's cheek. He's someone Mommy used to know. Lucian's jaw clenched. Used to. That hurt more than any blow. Ava grabbed Lily's hand, trying to guide her toward the side gate. Please, she whispered, voice trembling. Let me go. No, Lucian said again, stepping in front of the exit. He didn't touch her. He didn't raise his voice. But the way he blocked the path made Ava freeze. You're not running, he said quietly. Not this time. Ava's heart twisted painfully. Elora, tell him to move. But Elora, sweet, gentle Elora, leaned on her cane and shook her head. No, dear. Not until you explain why you ran. Not until Lucian hears the truth. Ava's chin trembled. You don't understand. Oh, I understand plenty, Elora said firmly. You were scared. You were heartbroken. And you made the best choice you could. But now he's here. And you both deserve answers. Ava looked away, blinking hard. Lucian stepped closer, voice low and shaking. Why didn't you tell me? She couldn't look at him. Ava, he whispered. Why didn't you let me be there for her? Her breath broke. You were meant to marry someone else, she said softly. Someone richer, someone good for your career. Everyone said so. Lucian's eyes hardened. Everyone? Ava nodded. Co-workers, people at the gala. They said you'd never want someone like me. Elora gasped in outrage. Lucian took a shaky step toward Ava. And you believed them? Her voice cracked. What was I supposed to think? That I deserved the truth, he snapped, emotion rising fast. That I deserved to know my child, our child, existed. Ava looked down. I was scared, Lucian. He pressed a hand to his forehead, overwhelmed. I spent years looking for you, he said quietly. I didn't date. I didn't move on. I didn't want anyone else. Ava's breath hitched. Elora clapped her hands, startling them both. Well then, she declared. This is simple. Simple? Ava whispered. Yes, Elora said, pointing her cane at Lucian. You, Lucian Voss, have to win her back. Lucian's mouth fell open slightly. Aunt Elora. And you, she said, turning on Ava, need to let him try. Ava shook her head, panicked. I can't. You can, Elora insisted. And you will. For Lily's sake, if nothing else. Lily looked up at all three adults, confused. Why is everyone yelling? Elora bent down and scooped Lily into her arms, her joy radiant. Oh, sweet girl. You have no idea what's about to happen. Lily blinked. What's happening? Elora kissed her cheek. Your father is home. Lucian flinched, overwhelmed. Ava froze completely. Lily just tilted her head curiously toward Lucian. Are you really my daddy? Lucian's entire world shattered. He dropped to one knee automatically, eye level with his daughter, and his voice came out a broken whisper. Yes, I'm your daddy. Lily studied him. Then she smiled shyly. You have my eyes. Lucian choked. A sound Ava had never heard from him. Not anger, not fear. Something raw, something gentle, something fragile. He reached out slowly, paused, waited. Lily placed her small hand in his, and something inside Lucian Voss finally cracked open. Elora's eyes welled with tears. Ava pressed a shaking hand over her mouth. Lucian held Lily's little hand like it was the most precious thing he'd ever touched. After a long, trembling moment, Lily said, Will you stay? Lucian's eyes lifted to Ava, pleading, burning, broken. That's up to your mother. Ava looked away immediately. She wasn't ready. She was terrified. Lucian saw it. He rose slowly. "I'll give you space," he said softly. "But I'm not leaving." Ava's breath hitched. Alora beamed. "Good boy." Lucian glared at her. "Aunt Alora." "Don't Aunt Alora me. This is your family. Fix it." Lucian ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I don't know how." Alora smirked. "Then lucky for you, Lucian Voss. You have a very clever little girl who will show you." Lily tugged Ava's sleeve. "Mommy, can Daddy stay for dinner?" Ava hesitated. Her heart twisted painfully. She wasn't ready. She wasn't sure she could handle him here, in her safe place, standing in the ruins of her old heartbreak. But Lily's hopeful eyes were impossible to deny. Ava nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered. Lucian exhaled shakily, so relieved it nearly dropped him to his knees. Alora clapped happily. "Good, we're making stew." Lucian smiled faintly at that. A real smile. Something Ava hadn't seen in years. Something dangerous. Something familiar. Something she wasn't ready to fall for again. But Lily grabbed both their hands and pulled them toward the house. And just like that, their fractured family took its first tiny, trembling step back together. Chapter 23. The Man Who Never Called Off. Lucian Voss had never taken a day off. Not for sickness. Not for vacations. Not for holidays. Not even when he was hospitalized once for exhaustion. He had his laptop delivered to the hospital bed. So when the clock struck 7 a.m. on Monday and Lucian Voss did not appear in the building, Voss International went into chaos. Phones rang. Executives panicked. Someone whispered he might be dead. Someone else cried. By 7:05 a.m., 3 departments were already drafting emergency restructuring plans. At 7:10, Clara from HR fainted. At 7:12, his personal assistant, the 14th one, Ava's replacement, had tried to train, called Alora's landline in a frantic meltdown. Mr. Voss didn't come in. He didn't email. He didn't fire anyone this morning. "Is the world ending?" Alora sipped her tea and said calmly. "Oh, sweetheart, he's just with family." Family?" the assistant squeaked. "Mr. Voss doesn't have—" "Yes, he does," Alora said proudly, and hung up. The office remained in a state of national emergency. At the farm, Lucian was still asleep, dead to the world. He slept harder than he had in years. Sprawled on Alora's ancient guest bed, one arm over his eyes, chest rising steadily, the first peaceful sleep he'd had since Ava disappeared. Ava stood in the doorway holding a mug of tea, watching him with a tangled knot of emotions. He looked different like this, not the ruthless CEO, not the untouchable powerhouse, just a man, a tired, faulted human man, a man she used to love, a man she had a daughter with, a man she still tried to keep at arm's length, because getting close again terrified her. Lucian entered the kitchen awkwardly, hands in his pockets. Like someone stepping into a dream he was afraid to touch. Lily tugged his hand and pulled him to a chair. "Daddy sits here." Ava froze mid-flip of a pancake. Lucian blinked. "That's my seat?" "Yes," Lily insisted. "Between Mommy and me." Ava nearly dropped the pan. "That's Lily, maybe Daddy should sit." "Nope," Lily beamed. "Here." Lucian swallowed hard and sat. Between them, close enough to smell the lavender in Ava's hair, close enough to feel her shaky breath when she accidentally brushed his elbow. Close enough to remember the night they created the little girl dancing around the table in her socks. He looked down at his plate. He whispered, barely audible, "Thank you for letting me be here." Ava's hands trembled. She nodded once. That's what Lily wanted. Not her. Not her heart that wouldn't stop racing. Lily giggled. "Daddy eats slow." Lucian blinked, confused. "Slow?" "You're doing tiny bites," Lily said matter-of-factly. "Like a mouse." Alora burst out laughing. Ava covered her mouth to hide a smile. Lucian's ears turned faintly pink. After cleaning up, Ava stepped outside to collect eggs. She needed space. Air. Silence. Her heart was too full and too fragile. Lucian found her near the chicken coop. "Ava." She didn't turn around. "I'm not ready for this conversation," she said softly. He moved closer, but stopped an arm's length away. "I won't push you," he said. "Not today." Ava let out a slow, shaky breath. "But I'm not leaving," he added. That made her chest clench painfully. "Lucian," she whispered, "I don't know if I can handle you here." He swallowed hard. "Do you want me to go?" Ava shut her eyes. Her throat burned. She whispered the truth she didn't want to say. "I don't know." He exhaled shakily. Pain flashed across his face, raw and unguarded, but he hid it quickly. Then I'll stay here, he said, voice gentle. Close enough for Lily, far enough for you. Ava turned then, eyes glistening. You called off work, she said, stunned. You never call off. Lucian gave a small, tired smile. I had something more important than work. Her breath hitched. She looked away. I don't know if we can fix anything, she whispered. I don't expect you to, Lucian said softly. I just want to be here for her. She nodded, slowly, painfully. Lily's joyful voice suddenly rang out from the porch. Daddy, come see the chickens! Lucian smiled, genuinely, then looked at Ava. Can I? Ava hesitated, then nodded. He walked toward his daughter, letting Lily grab both his hands and drag him through the farm like an excited puppy. Ava watched them. Lucian, big, elegant, dangerous Lucian, letting Lily put a flower crown on his head. Her heart cracked open. Elora appeared at her side, leaning on her cane with a mischievous smile. See, Elora said. He's already halfway in love with her, Ava whispered, voice trembling. That's what scares me. Elora squeezed her hand gently. Oh, sweetheart, she said. He's already halfway back in love with you, too. Ava didn't answer. She just watched father and daughter laughing together under the morning sun, a sight she never thought she'd live to see, and she felt her heart, fragile, wounded, aching, begin to stir in ways she wasn't ready to admit. Chapter 24, The Emergency. It began with a simple cough, a little rough, a little persistent. Ava didn't worry at first. Lily played in fields, ran barefoot in grass, and chased chickens every day. Kids caught colds, but by evening the cough deepened. By midnight, Lily had a fever, and by dawn, she was burning. Mommy! Lily's voice was faint, her cheeks flushed, her small body trembling. Ava's heart nearly stopped. She shook Elora awake. Something's wrong. She's not responding properly. Before Elora could reach for her cane, the front door burst open. Lucian. He stood in the doorway, hair messy from the couch he'd slept on. Chest heaving, eyes sharp and already terrified. What happened? He demanded. Ava's voice cracked. She's sick. She's really sick. He didn't hesitate. Get in the truck, he said, scooping Lily into his arms with the gentlest strength Ava had ever seen. Lily whined weakly, curling into his chest. Lucian's jaw tightened. It'll be okay, sweetheart. His voice was raw, shaking. Ava followed, tears already blurring her vision. The engine roared to life, gravel flying behind them as Lucian sped onto the highway. Lucian drove like a man possessed. Eyes forward, knuckles white, every muscle in his jaw clenched. Ava sat in the back seat with Lily in her arms. Every few minutes, Lucian's eyes flicked up to the rear-view mirror. You okay back there? Ava shook her head. No. He exhaled shakily. Me neither. Lily whimpered softly, nuzzling into Ava's chest. Mommy, Daddy, hurts. Ava's breath broke. Lucian's hands tightened on the wheel. I've got you, he whispered to Lily. We're getting you help. Ava stared at him. She had never seen him like this, never seen fear on his face, never seen love bone deep in his eyes. But right now, Lucian Voss looked like a father terrified of losing his world. They arrived at the private hospital Lucian used for international executives and foreign diplomats, the kind of place ordinary people never saw the inside of. Doctors rushed out before Lucian even parked. Nurse Team Alpha, he barked. Dr. Harrow, pediatric specialists, now. Ava's breath caught. New names? Protocols? Teams? He looked at her, voice low and sharp. This hospital works for me. They saved dozens of children during a foundation initiative. Lily will get the best care. Ava nodded weakly. Lucian swept Lily into the arms of a waiting nurse. No needles unless necessary, he said. She panics. Tell her mother before doing anything. The nurse blinked. Yes, Mr. Voss. Ava stared at him in shock. You remember that? He swallowed. Of course I do. Ava felt her heart twist painfully. Lily was whisked away for scans and labs. Ava tried to go with her, but a nurse gently stopped her. We'll take excellent care of her. Mr. Voss hired some of the best pediatric nurses in the country. She'll be safe. Ava turned, shaking. Lucian was already there. He opened his arms instinctively. Ava collapsed into them. He held her tightly, warm, strong, anchoring her in the spinning world. She's going to be okay, he whispered into her hair. I won't let anything happen to her. Ava clutched his shirt, tears soaking into the fabric. I'm so scared. I know, he said softly, pressing his cheek to her head. I am too. They stood there for a long time, holding on to each other, holding on to hope. Hours passed. Doctors came and went. Machines beeped. Lily slept under warm blankets, nurses monitoring every second. Lucian didn't leave the room. Not once. He sat beside Lily's bed, fingers lightly brushing her hand, eyes filled with a tenderness Ava didn't know existed. Ava watched him, quiet, exhausted, hurting. Lucian whispered to Lily, voice barely audible. "Daddy's here. I'm right here." Ava closed her eyes as tears slipped down her cheeks. She had denied him for so long, denied her own heart, but watching him now, watching the way he never let Lily's hand go, watching the way he looked at their daughter like she was the first miracle he'd ever seen. Ava couldn't deny anything anymore. By evening, Lily's fever broke. Diagnosis, a viral infection. Not life-threatening, just severe. Relief washed over both parents so strongly that Ava nearly collapsed. She sat on the couch in the corner of the hospital room, shoulders shaking with silent tears. Lucian walked over, a blanket in his hand. "Sit up," he said softly. She did. He draped the blanket around her shoulders. His fingers brushed her cheek. She froze. "Ava," he whispered, "look at me." She did, their faces inches apart, his eyes soft, pained, full of things he never dared say. "You're not alone in this anymore," he said quietly. A tear rolled down her cheek. "And I'm not going anywhere." She inhaled sharply. She wanted to run. She wanted to stay. She wanted him. She wanted to protect herself. Instead, she whispered, "Why are you being so gentle with me?" Lucian cupped her cheek. "Because I love her," he said. "Because I care about you." His voice dropped. "And because I've been waiting 5 years to fix my biggest mistake." Ava's heartbeat stumbled. "Lucian." He leaned closer, not touching her, not pushing, just close enough for their breaths to mingle. "You don't have to forgive me," he murmured. "You don't have to take me back." He swallowed. "But don't shut me out again. Let me be here. Let me try." Ava looked down at their daughter, safe, sleeping, breathing peacefully. Then back at Lucian, tired, vulnerable, and trying harder than she had ever imagined he could. She nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered. The relief on his face was so raw, so real, she felt her heart crack open. For the first time in years, they weren't running. They weren't fighting. They weren't broken. They were just them, a family on the edge of rediscovery. And the spark between them, the one they'd buried long ago, glowed bright in the quiet hospital room. Chapter 25, The Penthouse. Lily was cleared to go home the next morning. Her fever gone and her energy, though low, slowly returning. Ava signed the discharge papers with trembling hands. Lucian watched every detail, ready to intervene, ready to lift her away from any stress. His protectiveness was constant, sharp, and ridiculously tender. When they stepped outside the hospital entrance, Lucian opened the car door and gently helped Ava guide Lily into her car seat. Ava adjusted the straps. Lucian double-checked every buckle as if his daughter were made of glass. "She's safe," Ava whispered with a tiny smile. Lucian exhaled shakily. "I know." He didn't. He worried about Lily now with a depth that nearly swallowed him whole. Once Ava settled in the passenger seat, Lucian slid behind the wheel. Ava assumed they were driving back to Alora's farmhouse. But the moment Lucian turned left instead of right, Ava frowned. "This isn't the way to Alora's," she said quietly. Lucian didn't look at her. "I know." Her pulse jumped. "Lucian!" "Where are we going?" He tightened his grip on the wheel. "Home." Ava's breath caught. "Lucian!" He finally looked at her, and his voice softened into something she had only heard once or twice in her life. "Ava, I'm taking you both to the penthouse. You need rest. Lily needs constant monitoring. And I'm not letting you do that alone. Not when I can take care of both of you properly." Ava swallowed, hard. I didn't agree to stay." "I know," he said gently. "This isn't permanent, just until she's fully recovered." A pause. "But I want you there. And she needs both of us right now." Ava fell silent. She glanced back at Lily, who had fallen asleep sucking her thumb. Maybe this was right. Just for now." She nodded once. Lucian's shoulders dropped in relief. The elevator door slid open on the top floor. Ava stepped out and gasped. She remembered the penthouse faintly from years ago. Sleek, cold all steel and stone. But now, it was warm. Not cluttered, but softened. Lighter furniture, soft rugs, bookshelves overflowing. A piano in one corner, Plants in the sunlight. She turned to him slowly. It's different. Lucian rubbed the back of his neck. I changed it. After you left. Ava blinked. Why? He hesitated. Because it felt empty. His voice roughened. Because you weren't there. Her breath hitched. He quickly continued before she could answer. The guest room is ready for you and Lily. It's beside my room. So if anything happens... Ava cut in softly. Lucian, thank you. He stopped. The words seemed to hit him harder than they should have. He nodded once. You're welcome. Lily woke up as Ava laid her in the soft bed of the guest room. The moment she noticed her surroundings, she blinked in awe. Mommy, is this a castle? Lucian stood in the doorway, fighting the urge to smile. You can call it that if you want. Lily beamed. Daddy, do you live in a castle? Something in Lucian's chest squeezed painfully, beautifully. Yes, he said softly. And now you do too, for as long as you want. Ava's eyes stung at the way. Lily giggled and hugged the plush blankets like she'd found treasure. She whispered, You're spoiling her. Lucian whispered back, I've missed 5 years of spoiling her. I'm making up for lost time. Ava's heart throbbed. He sat next to Lily and stroked her hair gently. I'll be in the next room. If you need anything, water, toys, 50 blankets, just call. Lily giggled. Daddy, that's too many blankets. Lucian smiled. Not for you. Ava watched the exchange with a deep, aching warmth. She had expected Lucian to be awkward, cold, uncertain, but he wasn't. He was good, too good. Later that evening, when Lily napped, Ava finally exhaled for the first time all day. She stepped onto the penthouse balcony alone, leaning on the railing, staring at the city she once ran from. She still didn't know what to do, what to feel, how to protect her heart. The sliding door opened quietly behind her. Lucian stepped out. He kept a respectful distance beside her, hands resting on the railing. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The city lights flickered below like stars fallen to earth. Ava whispered, I can't let her get hurt. Lucian nodded slowly. I know. And I can't get hurt again either. Lucian's breath caught. He turned to face her fully. Ava, he said, voice quiet but trembling with sincerity. I won't hurt you. Not intentionally. Not ever again. Ava closed her eyes. Wind brushed her hair. Lucian. He took a step closer. Let me prove it. Not all at once. Just day by day. Ava stared at the city lights instead of him. Why now? She whispered. Why after all these years? Lucian didn't hesitate. Because I found what I thought I'd lost forever. Both of you. Her chest tightened painfully. He lifted a hand, hesitating, before brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. A soft, tentative touch. Ava, let me try. Her eyes lifted to his. For a moment, just a moment. She let herself feel that spark again, the one she buried 5 years ago. The one that still flared whenever he looked at her like that. She whispered, Okay. Lucian's breath broke on a shaky exhale. Not a victory. Not yet, but permission. A chance. The beginning of something they lost and were now slowly rediscovering. Together. Chapter 26. New routines, old feelings. The next morning felt unreal. Ava woke to sunlight spilling across crisp white sheets, the faint hum of city traffic below, and the unfamiliar scent of luxury laundry detergent. She blinked, adjusting to the soft bed and the high ceilings of the penthouse guest room. For a brief second, she forgot where she was. Then she heard it. Laughter. 2 voices, one small and bright, one deep and warm. Lily and Lucian. Ava's heart fluttered painfully. She got out of bed and padded toward the sound. Ava stopped in the kitchen doorway. Lily sat on the island counter, wearing one of Lucian's white button-up, shirts like a dress, sleeves rolled far past her hands. Lucian stood beside her holding a mixing bowl, tie absent, hair slightly messy, and flour all over his suit pants. Daddy, you're not doing it right. Lily giggled. Lucian stared at the pancake batter questioningly. I followed the instructions. Mommy makes circles, Lily said seriously, and you made blobs. Lucian looked offended. They're abstract. Ava pressed a hand to her mouth to keep from laughing. Lily spotted her. Mommy, Daddy's cooking. Ava raised an eyebrow. Is he really? Lucian glared at her half playfully. In my defense, I tried. Ava stepped closer, brushing a bit of flour from Lily's nose. Looks like you two had fun. Lucian's voice softened. We did. Ava froze. They did. Together. Without her. For the first time, the sight didn't make her run. It made her want to stay. After breakfast, Lily curled up on the couch with cartoons. Lucian sat beside her, arm resting protectively behind her. Ava hovered awkwardly, not knowing where she belonged. Lucian looked up. "Sit," he murmured. Her breath skipped. She hesitated before taking a seat on the opposite end of the couch. Lucian watched her with a small warmth in his eyes, subtle, almost shy. Ava pretended not to notice. Lily's head eventually fell into Lucian's lap as she drifted to sleep. Lucian froze at first, unsure what to do. Ava whispered, "You can touch her. She won't wake." He looked down at Lily, swallowing hard. Then he slowly, carefully placed a hand on her back. Soft, protective, tentative. "She's so small," he murmured. "She's 5. "She's still small," he insisted quietly. Ava looked at him, at the man who once broke her heart, now learning how to love a child he never knew. Something in her cracked open. Again. Later that afternoon, they went downstairs to pick up groceries. Lucian offered his hand to Lily as they stepped into the private elevator. She took it immediately. Ava stepped in last. The elevator doors closed. The small space felt suddenly too intimate. Lily held both their hands. Lucian's fingertips brushed Ava's, accidentally, barely, but enough to send a shiver up her spine. Ava looked away quickly. Lucian didn't. He watched her, quietly, memorizing her, like 5 years away had starved him. She refused to meet his gaze, but she felt it, every second. Later, when Lily napped again, Ava found Lucian in his office, a sleek room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He sat on the couch, a laptop open but untouched. He looked up when she entered. "Ava." She stopped at the doorway. She didn't know why she came. Maybe to thank him. Maybe to check on him. Maybe because being near him felt too natural now. Lucian closed his laptop gently. No CEO tension. "Just Lucian. How are you?" he asked softly. "I should be asking you that," she murmured. "It's a lot. Everything happening at once." He exhaled slowly. "That's true." A pause. "Are you overwhelmed?" Ava asked. "Yes," he admitted. "But it's worth it." "For Lily?" she asked quietly. His eyes softened. "For both of you." Ava's breath caught. He hesitated before speaking again. "I told my staff I'm not coming in for the rest of the week." Ava blinked. "Lucian, you can't do that." "I just did," he said simply. "Your company will survive," he murmured. "I nearly didn't, not without you." His voice thickened. "I won't risk losing you again. Either of you." Ava's heart twisted painfully. "Lucian," she whispered. He stood slowly, taking a careful step toward her, not touching, just near enough for her pulse to race. "I know you're scared," he said softly. "I know I'm the reason for that. And I'm not asking for forgiveness overnight." Ava swallowed hard. He continued, "But Ava, let me show you. Let me try. Let me be someone you don't have to run from anymore." Ava's eyes filled with tears she refused to shed. "Lucian," she whispered, voice trembling. "I don't want Lily to get hurt." He reached out, hesitated, then brushed a tear from her cheek with a feather-light touch. "I won't hurt her," he said. "And I won't hurt you." Ava's breath shuddered. For a moment, just a moment, she leaned into his touch. Lucian froze. Hope flickered in his eyes. Then Lily called from the bedroom. "Mommy, Daddy?" Ava stepped back instantly, wiping her cheek. Lucian clenched his jaw, fighting the urge to pull her back. But he didn't. He understood. "Ava?" His voice dropped. "Don't shut me out again." She met his eyes. "I'm trying not to." He nodded. "Not victory. Not yet. But something close to strength. Something close to healing. Something close to love." Life in the penthouse fell into a strange, beautiful routine. A fragile one. A dangerous one. A domestic one neither Ava nor Lucian was prepared for. Every morning, Lily would crawl into their bed. Yes, their bed. Because she had decided she liked sleeping in between both her parents. Ava objected. Lucian didn't. He didn't complain once. Not even when Lily's tiny feet kicked him in the ribs. If anything, he looked happy. Too happy. Like this, Ava, Lily, and him was something he'd always wanted but never believed he could have. Ava tried to guard her heart. She failed daily. One morning, Ava woke before Lily, before Lucian. Sunlight streamed across his face, highlighting the sharp lines of his jaw. The softness of his features relaxed in sleep. He looked nothing like the CEO the world feared. Ava couldn't help staring. He was too close, too warm, too much everything she'd spent years running from. Lucian stirred and opened his eyes softly. They met hers. A slow smile tugged at his lips. "Good morning," he murmured. Ava's breath caught. "Good morning?" A beat. Too long, too intimate, too charged. Lily suddenly snored loudly between them. They both burst into quiet laughter. It was easy, warm, dangerous. Ava slipped out of bed before she could fall deeper. In the kitchen, Ava tried to teach Lucian how to crack an egg. He cracked it so hard the shell shattered everywhere. Ava groaned. "Lucian." "Physics," he muttered defensively. "That's not physics." He tried again. More shell. Ava pinched the bridge of her nose. "Okay, you're banned from eggs." "I run a multi-billion-dollar empire," he argued. "I can crack an egg." He cracked another. Shell slid into the bowl. Ava stared at him. Lucian sighed. "Fine, maybe not." She laughed, a soft, genuine laugh she hadn't heard from herself in a long time. Lucian froze at the sound, staring at her, like she was sunlight. Ava caught the look. Her smile faltered. The air thickened between them, warm, electric, unspoken. Lucian stepped closer, slowly, like approaching a frightened animal. "Ava?" Her heart pounded. But before anything could happen, the elevator chimed. Someone was coming up. Ava stepped back quickly. Lucian straightened, slipping into CEO mode, jaw tight. The elevator doors slid open, and a woman stepped out, tall, beautiful, dressed in an expensive black coat and heels that clicked sharply on the marble floor. Her eyes widened when she saw Lucian. "Lucian!" she exclaimed. "What are you doing at home?" "You've ignored all your meetings." Lucian's voice went ice cold. "Why are you here, Madison?" Ava stiffened. Madison. Ava knew that name. The rich, classy, suitable woman coworkers once said he would marry. Madison walked toward Lucian like she owned the floor. "I came to check on you," she said smoothly. "Your staff is panicking. They thought you died." "I didn't," Lucian said flatly. Madison's gaze finally fell on Ava. Her brows lifted. "And who is this?" she asked, tone dripping with polite venom. Ava swallowed. "Ava." "And—" Madison pressed. Lucian stepped closer to Ava. Madison stared, confused. Then she noticed the small pair of pink socks tucked halfway under the couch. She pointed at them. "Are you hosting guests?" Before Ava could step in front of them, Lily toddled out, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy, Daddy?" Madison froze. Ava's stomach dropped. Lucian moved instinctively, placing a hand behind Lily, guiding her gently toward Ava. Madison's eyes widened as the pieces clicked. Shock, confusion, jealousy. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You have a child?" Lucian didn't hesitate. "Yes." "And she's yours?" Madison stuttered. Lucian's jaw tightened. "She's mine." Madison stared between them. Then her voice sharpened. "So this is why you vanished? This is why you won't return to work? Because of them?" Lucian's voice snapped like a whip. "Watch your tone." Ava flinched. Madison stepped back, stunned. "You're different," she whispered. "You've changed." Lucian didn't deny it. He only said with a soft glance at Ava, "Yes." Madison looked at Ava with thinly veiled disdain. "So she's the reason you threw away 5 years of your career focus?" Lucian's expression darkened. A dangerous, low fury Ava recognized. But Ava spoke first. "We're not together," she said quickly. "We're just co-parenting." Lucian turned to her sharply. Ava turned away. Madison smirked. "Good. That makes things simple." Ava's stomach twisted. Madison crossed her arms. "I'll expect you back at work tomorrow. And we can resume discussions about the board's expectations." Lucian's voice was ice. "No." Madison blinked. "What?" "I'm not coming in," he said. "And board matters can wait." "You would jeopardize your legacy for this?" Lucian's patience snapped. "I'm not jeopardizing anything," he hissed. "I'm prioritizing my daughter. And Ava." Ava froze. Lucian realized what he said. Madison's face twisted. "You can't be serious." Lucian lifted Lily into his arms. "I've never been more serious." Madison's heels clicked angrily as she stormed back into the elevator. When the doors closed, silence fell. Heavy, hot silence. Ava stepped back, breathing unsteady. "Lucian, you shouldn't have said that." "Said what?" he asked, eyes locked on hers. "That you're prioritizing me." He took a slow step closer. "You want me to lie?" Ava's pulse quickened. "Lucian." He reached up and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. "Ava, I told you. I'm trying." Her breath trembled. His lips brushed her forehead. Soft, barely there. Electric. Ava closed her eyes and didn't step away. Chapter 28. Almost. Dinner that evening was quiet. Too quiet. Lucian sat across from Ava, their plates untouched. Lily happily drawing pictures on the kitchen island. The coloring pencils scratched softly against paper, filling the silence that stretched between them. Ava picked at her food. Lucian didn't even pretend to eat. His eyes stayed on her, watching her, studying her, feeling her worry and her distance. After Madison left earlier, Ava had shut down, pulled away, retreated into the safe, unreachable part of herself. And Lucian felt it. He hated it. He hated hurting her without meaning to. He hated losing ground right after earning a sliver of trust. He hated how much he cared. After Lily went to bed, curled between them, insisting on family story time, Ava tried to slip away quietly. But Lucian caught her. "Stay," he murmured. Ava froze in the dim hallway, her hand resting on the wall. "Lucian, I'm tired." "I know." He stepped closer. "Just talk to me." Ava swallowed hard. His voice, his nearness, his sincerity, all of it tugged at soft places she had tried to protect for years. She sighed and followed him into the living room. The conversation they couldn't avoid. Lucian ran a hand through his hair and sat on the couch. Ava stood a safe distance away. Too far, he noticed. He hated that distance too. "Ava," he said softly, "why did Madison bother you?" Ava stiffened. She didn't. "Ava." He rarely said her name like that. Low, intimate, almost pleading. Ava looked away. "She's the type of woman you belong with," she whispered. "The type everyone expected you to marry." Lucian blinked. Then his expression shifted. Not angry, not hurt, but pained. "Ava," he said slowly, "the only person I've ever wanted was you." Her breath hitched. "Don't say that," she whispered. "Why not?" "Because it's too late." Lucian stood. Ava backed up until her back pressed into the wall. He stopped inches from her, not touching, just close enough to feel his heat, close enough for her heartbeat to trip painfully. Lucian braced one hand against the wall beside her head. "Ava," he murmured, voice low and trembling. "I lost 5 years with you. 5 years with our daughter. I'm not wasting another second pretending I don't—" He cut himself off. His jaw clenched. Ava whispered, "Pretending you don't what?" Lucian's eyes flicked to her lips. Her pulse skyrocketed. He leaned closer. "Ava," he breathed, "I'm trying not to scare you." "You're not." "I'm trying not to rush you." "You're not." "And I'm trying—" His voice cracked. "Not to kiss you right now." Ava's breath trembled out of her. Her fingers curled against the wall. "Lucian," she whispered. He exhaled shakily. "I'm trying so damn hard to be patient," he whispered. "But every time you look at me, every time you say my name, every time you breathe, I feel like I'm losing my mind." Ava forced her eyes upward. He was inches away. Too close, too warm, too dangerous. "Then kiss me," she breathed before she could stop herself. Lucian froze. Every muscle in his body tightened. Not in desire, in restraint. "Ava," he said, voice low and tortured. "If I kiss you now, I won't be able to stop." Her breath shattered. She had asked without thinking. He was thinking too much. Lucian stepped back, just barely. Enough to stop himself. Enough to torture both of them. Ava pressed a shaking hand to her chest. Lucian dragged a hand down his face, whispering, "God, you undo me." They didn't speak for nearly a minute. Just breathed, just stared, just existed in a tension so thick it felt like a living thing. Then Lucian broke the silence. "Ava, can I hold you?" Her lips parted. "Yes." He moved in slowly, giving her time to pull away. But she didn't. She stepped into him instead. Lucian wrapped his arms around her gently at first, then stronger, desperate, like he had been waiting 5 years for this embrace. Ava buried her face against his chest, his scent, his warmth, his heartbeat pounding wildly. "Lucian," she whispered. His arms tightened, his lips brushing the top of her head. "I'm here," he murmured. "I'm not going anywhere. Not again." Ava trembled. So did Lucian. They stayed like that for a long time. 2 shattered hearts finding a shape again. Not lovers. Not yet, but something close. Something dangerous and beautiful. Something that made Ava whisper, "Maybe it isn't too late." Lucian inhaled sharply. Hope surged across his face like sunlight. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "Ava," he breathed. Tell me you want this. Tell me you still feel something. Ava's fingers brushed his cheek. She whispered, voice shaking. Lucian, I never stopped. His breath stuttered. His eyes softened. His forehead almost touched hers. Almost. But Lily called from the hallway. Mommy, Daddy? They froze. Ava stepped away, cheeks flushed. Lucian exhaled hard, fighting the urge to pull her back. Later, he murmured. Tell me the rest later. Ava nodded, breathless. Lucian watched her walk toward Lily's voice, and he whispered to himself, Don't lose her. Not this time. Chapter 29. The future. They didn't know they wanted. 6 months passed like a gentle, steady sunrise. Life in the penthouse became normal, comfortable, dangerously domestic. Lucian learned the rhythm of fatherhood, the bedtime stories, the pancake blobs, the morning cuddles Lily insisted on. And Ava learned to breathe again. She let him in piece by piece, not rushing, not running. Lucian never pushed. He simply stayed. Every night, every morning, every moment that mattered. He stayed. It happened on a Tuesday. Ava stood in the bathroom staring at a small white stick, hands trembling. 2 lines. 2. Her breath left her in a shaky whisper. No way. She slid down against the counter, pressing a hand to her stomach. Tears filled her eyes, not from fear this time. From surprise, from awe, from love. A knock on the door. Ava? Lucian's voice. Gentle, concerned. Are you okay? She swallowed hard. Yes, Just a minute. When she opened the door, Lucian immediately frowned. What's wrong? Your face is pale. Ava held up the test. Lucian stared, then blinked, then stared again. His mouth opened, then closed. He whispered, voice cracking. Is that? Yes, she breathed. I'm pregnant. Lucian took one slow step toward her. Are you sure? She nodded, tears spilling. Positive. His chest rose sharply. And then, for the first time in his life, Lucian Voss's eyes filled with tears. Ava, he whispered, voice unsteady. You're carrying my son? Ava froze. How do you know it's a boy? Lucian smiled through a choked exhale. I don't, but I feel it. She laughed softly, watery but real. Lucian reached out, hesitating only for a second before resting his palm against her stomach. A soft, reverent touch. Ava covered his hand with hers. Lucian's voice dropped to a trembling whisper. Thank you for giving me another chance. That night, Lucian barely slept. He watched Ava curled beside him, one hand resting protectively over her belly. His mind raced. Fear, joy, love, hope, and something he'd never allowed himself before. Determination. When Ava woke, he was already dressed, standing by the window, holding a small velvet box. Ava blinked sleepily. Lucian! He turned, and everything inside Ava went still. Come here, he said softly. She approached slowly, heartbeat pounding. Lucian took her hands. Voice low, thick, honest. Ava, I lost 5 years with you. I missed the first years of Lily's life. I won't miss another moment. Her breath shook. Lucian, I want to make this right for you, for Lily, for our son. She covered her mouth as tears built. Lucian knelt, actually knelt. The world tilted. He opened the velvet box. A simple, elegant ring. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. Something beautiful and real. Something chosen for her. Ava Reed, he said, voice trembling. Marry me before our son is born, before life throws anything else at us. Let me be your husband. Let me be their father. Let me be yours. Ava's voice broke. Lucian, I'm scared. So am I, he whispered. But I want this. I want you. I want us. She stared at him. This man she once thought untouchable, unreachable, now kneeling in front of her, asking for forever. Ava dropped to her knees too, grabbing his face with both hands. Yes, she whispered. Lucian inhaled sharply. Yes, she said again, firmer. Yes, I'll marry you. His breath broke in a laugh, deep, relieved, emotional. He crushed her into his arms, holding her like she was the only thing that had ever mattered. Ava kissed him. Finally, fully, without hesitation, without fear, and he kissed her back like he had been dying for this moment. 1 year later, the house was chaos, a beautiful, noisy chaos. Lily sat on the couch with a picture book. Elora, honorary grandma, fussed in the kitchen. Lucian bounced a newborn baby boy in his arms. Dark hair, soft cheeks, his father's eyes. Ava leaned against Lucian's shoulder. Careful, she teased softly. You're spoiling him already. Lucian smirked. He deserves everything. Ava raised a brow. And his sister doesn't? Lucian laughed. An actual warm laugh. And kissed Ava's temple. They both do. Lily peeked up. Mommy, Daddy? Baby Noah is drooling. Lucian looked at his son proudly. He's perfect. Ava smiled. He is. Lucian met her gaze. And for a moment, the whole world stopped. 5 years of heartbreak, 5 years of running, 5 years of second chances. All led to this. A family, a home, a future they built together. Lucian kissed Ava softly. I love you, he said gently. More than I ever thought I could love anything. Ava brushed tears from her eyes. I love you too. Baby Noah cooed between them. Lily threw her arms around their legs. Elora clapped happily. And for the first time ever, Lucian Voss, the man who always believed he had no weaknesses, found the greatest strength of his life. His family, the end.